Bigwigs on the radio. Shut up. It's gaming focused audio.
Welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast. And yes, again, it's been a big week in gaming. I'm Integot for episode 33 on Sunday, the 28th of Feb. As always, I'm joined by the official, verified Xbox Hall of Famer and number one challenger to the mantle of the greatest Xbox RPG player in the world, Swinny.
Hello.
And the guy in the middle, the gamer, anti-gamer, the flip-flopper-in-chief, Mike.
Hello. How goes it?
In this week's show, we'll be discussing Anthem's overhaul gets cancelled by EA and BioWare, heaps of Sony news including confirmation of the new PS5 VR headset, and a Valve doubleheader, Half Life Alyx, our impressions, and a reflection on Portal 2. We have a correction straight up, Swinny. Is this the case?
Yeah, well, isn't this always where corrections go?
Yeah, well, we like to keep honest and have integrity.
They go throughout the entire episode while you guys are correcting me.
It's
as well. That's another one.
It's big week in corrections.
Big week in corrections.
So last week we, as part of BlizzCon, Blizzard announced the Blizzard Arcade collection, and we talked about it. I think we talked, to some of the big stuff about it, but I also think we did a bit of disservice to it.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, for sure. I agree with this.
We undersold a lot of the work that they put into this collection, and I think with knowing this after the fact, the price point is 100% makes sense. Actually, it's pretty good. So I'll just quickly explain some stuff. So within we talked about last week that they've got the Lost Vikings, Rock and Roll Racing, Blackthorn, and different versions of them. But actually, within the collection, they actually describe what's different between them. And we kind of mentioned in passing and just glossed over, and we think there might be a definitive edition for one of them or something. No, all three games have definitive editions, and they're really, really awesome. So they combine the good elements from all the versions. Let's say the Mega Drive version has more levels, but the SNES version has the better graphics and sounds. They combine it all together in the definitive edition. Rock and Roll Racing, for instance, is in widescreen. It's got new graphics, and Rock and Roll Racing has an awesome soundtrack with Judas Priest and George Thorogood and things like that. And they've actually put the actual songs there with the actual, vocals and everything, new CD quality voiceover. They've added a new 4-player split screen mode where it was originally 2-player and that everything's unlocked from the beginning. And in Blackthorn, they added a whole new map. The game didn't have a map before. So they put heaps of work into those definitive editions. So I just wanted to correct the fact that we didn't cover that very well.
Well, and to add to that, I think for Capcom as well, correct me if I'm correct the correction, Swinny. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, the way we covered that, I think we really spoke about it almost like it's a bit of a remake of Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts a little bit, but it kind of really isn't. It's like the first level is very much inspired by the first game, but from that point on, it's really almost like a brand new game.
Yeah, it has skill trees.
Yeah, I think we stepped up the coverage on that as well.
But I think, look, we didn't know
enough about the game at the time, and now it's just come out. So
yeah, it's not intentional. I think you two, I'm not, but you two are pretty thorough in researching stuff, and it's not intentionally left out or anything like that. I think it's some stuff you just miss out. Yeah,
I think one of us needs to buy that game and play it, and then review it.
Fine.
That was also one announcement in the middle of a whole lot of other things. Whereas I think there were more. Like the Blizzard Arcade collection, we spent more time on it. Yeah, so that's why I feel like we did more disservice.
That's true. And what have you been playing this week, Mike?
What have I been playing? Oh gosh, so I finished Demon Souls on PS5. Finally,
oh, nice.
Yeah,
I didn't know what you finished because I think you said DES or something. I didn't know what that was.
You can't say DS because that's Dark Souls usually.
Even though it came out first,
they got to put the extra E. Well, I could say DS, but they'll just be confusing. So I finished that. I started a brand new character, and I got to the same part that I was with my first character in about half the time, I think.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know if part of that is because it's a different play style, because I was going as a mage in the first playthrough, and then the second playthrough, I kind of rushed through it using more of a melee build. But also because I wasn't...
What character did you start with?
A mage build. just mostly using magic.
No, I mean in the
first
second
instance.
playthrough.
On the second playthrough, just a melee build.
Like
just
royalty or something else?
I don't even remember what
wow.
the start. I don't think it's not relevant anyway what he started off at, but
I
it was
think in
just
that game it does more than Dark
Dex
Souls,
built.
right?
Yeah, but not by much.
Yeah, sure.
It was basically I just focused on dexterity and just the good old Uchi katana.
Uchi Dex.
It's the best Uchi Dex. So that was really interesting. Plus, I played it in my bedroom, so I wasn't sitting there the whole time going ooh every 2 seconds, admiring the scenery, which obviously looks fantastic even at 1080p. But I've kind of gone through that, and I wasn't stopping every 2 seconds to look at it.
So wait, you moved the PS5 into your bedroom now?
Yeah.
Okay.
What a waste. Well, I wouldn't say it's a waste of a console, but I've got a 1080p TV. It's not bad. It's not a bad TV, 60, right? But yeah, it runs at 60. Oh, it's fantastic. It's absolutely cool. And so that was the primary thing that I finished this week, and that was really cool. It was good to finally get that over and done with. And then a bit more Mario Odyssey, to balance things out. A bit of scariness, a bit of.
Where are you up to?
So I don't think it spoils anything. I don't know the name of the kingdom, but it's the one that's. I don't remember. I've got all but 2 sections of the Odyssey completed, and I'm up to the land that's full of candy and stuff. And
that's cool.
That sort of colorful land, which I thought was a really cool looking land. One thing that I really liked about Mario Odyssey is, you guys remember way back in the days of games in the 90s and stuff, where you'd have these city skylines and stuff in the background that were just these pixelated little repeated sort of textures and stuff, yet in the back of your mind it was almost like this entire world out there, even though you were confined to just this little box in the game itself. But it just gave you this illusion that there's this whole city, this whole world with life and stuff out there. And it's weird, it's like something about Mario Odyssey gave me that feeling again, where you see the city skyline, or you see the different locations that have these sort of backdrops that aren't particularly detailed or anything, but it's the same kind of concept, the way they've done it. And that really struck out for me. And then I stopped playing it because my partner took over the Switch and she started playing it. So this morning, I woke up at 8:30 or something, and she was still half asleep. She's like, "Oh, come back to sleep." And I'm like, no, I'm just going to get up and go for a walk and stuff. So she's like, "Okay, can I have the Switch?" I'm like, "Are you serious? Like 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday? You don't want to sleep? You want to play the Switch?" She's like, "Yes, I must finish off Mario Odyssey." So she's hooked on that one. And I've been playing a game called Hunt Down, which kind of broke my I don't want to get more games. But I had my eye on this one. Kind of did.
That thing is dead and buried.
A little bit dead and buried, yeah. I had my eye on Hunt Down for a while, and the reason I had my eye on it is because of the fact that I think it's some of the best looking pixel graphics in any game I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
It's really cool looking graphics. This game. Yeah. So the game itself, I feel like it's not the kind of game I wish it was, if that makes sense, but I love it for what it is. So
I wish this was a Metroidvania.
I wish it was exactly that. If this game with this art style was a Metroidvania game, oh my god, it'd be one of the best games ever made. It's just so good. And it's more of like a Metal Slug kind of gameplay.
Yeah, it does. It kind of looks like a bit like that.
It's like that. I feel like it's an homage to those kind of games for sure.
Contra.
Contra, yeah. They're very bite-sized levels, which I think I like and I don't like. I like in the sense that they're very self-contained, and the boss in each area is very unique, but it's very simple and formulaic in the sense that you go through like a very short period of just enemies with some variation and stuff, which I think is pretty cool. And then you face a boss. And it's the same formula repeated multiple times, as opposed to, like a Metroidvania kind of game where you go back and forth and whatnot.
I'm looking at a screenshot. I see this kind of like monster truck looking thing. Do you get to ride around in?
I can't spoil. No, not so far. You do not. No,
you might.
But I highly recommend the game. I think it's still on special on the Switch, so I highly recommend grabbing a copy or whatever platform you choose, for the fact that the graphics are just fantastic.
Man, there's a boss called Unholy Goalie.
Yeah,
that sold me. That sold me.
The bosses are fantastic. It's a very silly kind of 80s action packed, sort of lots of little references. It's got references to Pulp Fiction. It's got references to Duke Nukem. It's a bit of a mix of sort of references like that, but it's fantastic. Highly recommend it. And then, of course, so I can shut up now. I've been playing a bit
before you move from Hunt Down, it's on sale right now. But by the time we get this up, it's literally going to go off sale. So people have to jump on it. But it actually, like, this animation, because it's 16-bit style, but all hand-drawn animation. And to me, this is what I don't like about Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, where they've rigged the 2D hand-drawn model. So it's like, a 3D almost perspective, whereas this is all hand-drawn, all the animations. And it looks awesome.
Insanely good.
It looks really cool, man.
The parallax effect of the city.
About picking it up.
I highly recommend it. And the gameplay is fantastic as well. It's very solid in terms of the shooting mechanics and everything. And you get 3 different characters.
You should do a review on it.
I'll do a proper review on it, even though you kind of heard most of what I have to say about it. But highly recommend it. It's a fantastic game. And of course, the last thing, which I won't talk a lot about because we've got a segment on it later, is Half Life Alyx. Reserve my thoughts to later.
Well, maybe I'll jump in there as well.
Did I like it?
I've been playing Half Life Alyx as well, so I'll reserve judgment. I actually played a bunch of it yesterday as well. I had some time by myself, amazingly. So yeah.
Wow.
I'm going to be really fascinated to see what you think of.
Wait, did you? Were you about to go on a holiday? Did you put the kids in the house and the wife in the car, close the doors, and you went off to play Half Life Alyx?
Because it needs to be a rare event where it's like because it's not. I don't have a VR set, as I said last week or the week before.
Yes.
My wife's dad owns one, weirdly enough, and they and my wife and kids all went out for the day, so I got to play it.
Nice.
I think I had a 3-hour or 4-hour stretch to be able to play it.
Whoa!
Skip context. So
I want to hear more about that 3-hour stretch because
we'll have
in VR it's intense.
That sounds wrong.
We'll have to touch on that, and then also another thing that I won't go into detail with now is Portal 2. Been playing with Swinny a little bit co-op because I'd finished the main campaign but never the co-op. So we'll touch on that in Portal 2 retrospective. And then finally, I tried remote play on the PS4 Pro previously, and I think with those type of things, like streaming, game streaming, they have a threshold where it works or it doesn't work. And if it's below that threshold, you're just like, oh, this is horrible. Like I like to experiment, try different things. I thought, okay, I'll try it again with the PS5. I've heard it's better. And like I've got a very good Wi-Fi setup at home, so I probably should say that. PS5's connected into via LAN. So it's like everything is there to make it successful. It is incredibly good. Like it actually blew me away. Like it absolutely blew me away how good it is and how responsive it is. So much so, I started playing Dark Souls in my bedroom, but via streaming. So remote play from my PS5 in my, office area. And it's unreal. Like it actually, because the thing I always say to you guys, like I want to get through those games, but some of them are hard because it's hard to play it because, like, how am I going to play it? But it's now pretty much like a viable option. And I know this will never happen, but I just wish that it could connect to my Switch and I could use, like, my Switch.
That's what I was thinking while you were saying that, yeah.
I'm so adamant on that. Like, if they allowed more of that, it would be so cool. Like, I'd play it so much, so much more. But yeah, I may probably, segueing to you, Swinny, and what you're playing this week. Like you've tried remote play on the Series X. Mike hasn't even opened his yet. Amazingly, people are out there crying when they hear that. How's a remote play on the Series X? Is it any different than the one?
Okay, so interestingly, if you don't do your research, you cannot currently remote play from the Series X.
Oh, okay, that's a big difference.
So, but this is something that I actually did a few weeks ago, and I was going to mention, and I just forgot. So I play a lot of RPGs, as you know, and a lot of those are turn-based or grid-based. So if there's a bit of a delay, then I'm cool with it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And so, I set my Series X up and I'm like, I'm going to go, into the other room and I'll just like stream it to my Surface or whatever and just play it like I normally did. And it's like, it can't connect to the Series X. It's only showing my old Xbox One. But I looked it up, and what you have to do is you have to jump through these hoops and access like the developer version of the Windows Store. And you have to actually it's almost like side loading by enabling developer mode on the Windows 10 store.
What?
the app that's in testing at the moment to
Ah.
allow you to stream. And so I did that. So when you load it up, it's obviously an unfinished thing. It's for developers. And it worked fine. But
You're a hacker now.
the fact that I had to go through all that, I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I'm glad that I hope they make that available to everyone.
But did it work well? Did it actually work well once you went
It
through
worked
all the
about the same. It worked about the same as what the Xbox One did. It's pretty much the same.
But how much of a delay is it? Like, because I'm not doing a digital foundry and counting the frames, but quite honestly, for me, I get very sensitive with that kind of stuff, and I thought it was very playable.
Yes, you are very sensitive.
Look, it's my current setup. I would need to improve to make it viable for games that require like actual proper timing. So
yeah, because I was playing Dark Souls, and it was like, I'm not very good at Dark Souls, number one, but I didn't have an issue playing it. I was shocked. I thought for sure, like it would struggle. The thing that it struggles with, and this is just due to compression, is if you're going through scenes with lots of changes, like heaps of stuff getting thrown at you, it feels like you're watching like a stream that's buffering or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And outside of that, like most games, like it honestly really opens things up for me because there's a whole bunch of PS4 games I want to get through. I generally don't have much time to play them, but I could probably play them for like an hour in bed or something like that.
you should find a Vita for cheap, because couldn't you do it with that?
With Vita for cheap. Dude, I have been looking into that, and I don't want to even promote that even further. Vitas are going up in price again.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, of course. Probably because of stuff like this.
I know. I'm like, I might pull the trigger on it. My wife's gonna kill me.
Which are they now?
It's like $300.
Worth it.
Like
what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, there are some still where people just list it on Facebook, like, oh, here's $150 for my Vita, and then they get sold within an hour.
Aren't you better off just getting a? Because you can get a relatively cheap phone with a decent screen.
Well, I've got a good phone and everything like that, but
then just getting the controllers.
Yeah, no,
wouldn't that work pretty well? Like, it wouldn't introduce all that much lag or anything, and we're pretty.
I just think of Vita. I think Swinny's right. A Vita is just, although a Vita, I think. What's the downside to a Vita? It's only got one shoulder button, right?
And it will only have one purpose for you, which is this.
Oh yeah.
All I know is I just remember a lot of people just talking about them doing all that all the time. So
yeah. Vitas only have one shoulder button. I remember this. So it's like they only have R1 or like.
How do you do Dark Souls and stuff? Yeah,
I know. It's very strange that they did that. I think. Like I'd prefer if they. Look, I'm 99% sure with what I'm saying, so don't come at me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I'm gonna look into that, Swinny. Like I don't know, I just don't want to keep buying games and stuff. I'm going a bit nuts. Yeah, I just confirmed it definitely only has LNR.
Wow. Okay.
Because I'm also looking at the Mister as well, so I don't want to get too crazy. Yeah, but what else have you been playing, Swinny?
Well, other than the couple of hours we put into Portal 2 Co-op, which we'll mention later, I've only been playing one game this week. One single game. So I've been really focusing on my first gaming resolution, which is the 100% achievement completion in Assassin's Creed series. So as part of that is Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered, which is actually kind of like three games in a way. So it's Assassin's Creed 3, which is huge and probably the toughest completion in the series, in my opinion.
Oh wow, that's from someone who's played 99%.
Yeah, I've always it's not in terms of time, just probably in terms like it's more than probably the most difficult. Liberation HD, and also I've kind of sectioned this off. There's the Tyranny of King Washington DLCs for Assassin's Creed 3 that are kind of self-contained episodes. So I'm just about to wrap up completing Assassin's Creed 3 100%, which is just, it's... That game, there's so much I love about that game. It does so much well. It's just there's these things that stick out that just prod at you and you just can't forget about them. That just makes it sometimes a bit of a miserable experience. But in general... Like, if I had spent more time talking about each individual game in our Assassin's Creed tier list, go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. I would have, probably given more thoughts on what Assassin's Creed 3 did right. But after I finish all them off, then I'm going to move straight on to Rogue Remastered, finish that off, and then just figure out how the hell I'm going to finish the PC version of Assassin's Creed Pirates, which is actually a pretty good game for a mobile game. So
okay.
Very technically impressive.
You're starting to get a lot of comments in in the tier list that's up on YouTube. It's quite funny.
Bit of a mixed
Yeah,
bag from what I
it's-
saw.
I didn't understand the hate for Odyssey.
Well, Odyssey is really divisive because,
Yeah.
well, honestly, for a long while, the games haven't been about assassins at all. But
That's
yeah,
true.
Odyssey is divisive because it's like they really went hard in the action RPG direction, which is not everyone's favorite part of those games.
So is it basically like that is the standout, the poster child for the series changing its style?
Pretty much.
Yeah,
And
makes
Valhalla
sense.
scaled some of that back a bit. So
Interesting. But yeah, you're getting good traction in it. It's good to see. It's going to be interesting to just see how it goes, and if you get more hate.
no
Joy's
no
like-
list is going to please everyone,
No.
and it's those
No way.
they're entirely subjective. you
Yeah.
know, so
Besides supermodels from the 90s.
that's a. I'm thinking back. Oh yeah, we did talk about that, didn't we?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I know. That's an after dark episode that we don't make. All right, let's jump into the news then. So our headliner for this week, and one of the biggest stories of the week, is that there is no more encore for Anthem. Anthem Next, as it was known internally, developed by 30 to 40 folk, has been canned after 1.5 years of redevelopment by BioWare and EA. So yeah, I think a big component of this decision as well is definitely driven by COVID-19. As we've seen, games that are in the final phase of execution, it's probably something that you can work from home effectively. I think trying to overhaul a game as it was, with so many moving parts and so many creative decisions to make, it just, to me, seemed near impossible. And also the context that BioWare is coming off 2 flops, critical flops at least. Anthem sold very well. And they have a new Mass Effect in pipe, and then also Dragon Age. So having a third game is quite challenging. And then just the final thing there was around Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who probably populates 90% of our stories. It just had some insider reports around EA and their thinking around games in general. And I guess their surprise at Jedi Fallen Order, which is a single player only game, selling so well that they've actually gone and changed the direction of Dragon Age, which I must admit, Swinny, that I didn't even know that it was going to be a live service game. So this actually shocked me when I read through the report. Maybe it's just something I wasn't really paying attention to.
My impression or my assumption is it would have had significant live service features, but would have still been a single player game in general. That's the take that I would have had on the way they would have approached it. Obviously, it could have been basically like Destiny or Anthem. Who knows?
Well,
but I think it would have, because they already started to feed some of that stuff in, and we talk about the last me making that horrible prediction about they're going to announce Dragon Age has multiplayer, and then realizing that Inquisition had multiplayer anyway. It made sense that they would have stepped further into some live service stuff.
And at the time he said it, and well, probably more like a year before, based on Jason Schreier's reporting. I mean, like, you're kind of right though, because they were going really hard at multiplayer. You know what I think it would have been like? I think the way that at least my take from reading the article and just thinking about the business side of it, I think, are you familiar with Marvel's Avengers, the game that Square Enix made?
Yeah. I haven't played it, but
Even I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because like it does actually have what most people say is a pretty decent single player campaign, but it's so dragged down by pushing you into this live service element, which doesn't really have enough going for it for most people.
Right.
I haven't played it, so I can't really comment on it, but I mean, there's not a lot of love for that game, I would say.
I think you can find the right balance. So I think looking back at Destiny, I think that had the right balance where you could play the single player campaign, and the single player campaign was pretty good, especially nowadays with all the added content and the fact that it's a free game effectively. You get quite a lot out of the single player campaign, and then of course you get hooked. A lot of people I think do, and you jump onto the multiplayer stuff. But that's a good balance between offering a really concrete, good, solid single player experience, but then having the added multiplayer stuff, which is where they get most of their money from.
Look, I mean, there's games that have done it well, and I've played none of them. But so I'll just put that out there.
You're
But
not a gamer.
Destiny, Division. There's games that have done it well, but there's only so many live service games that people are willing to
That's
commit time to.
exactly the thing as well, right? I think there's because those games take potentially tens of hours a week sometimes to complete. Especially you look at a game like Destiny. In order to do some of the raids and stuff, we used to do, oh boy, almost every evening we'll spend 3-4 hours at least playing that game, and that's the kind of time sink you need on one of those types of games because of the things that it asks of you. So it's overload. There's way too many of those things out there. And
talking about one that people didn't want to put their time into is Anthem.
That's right. Yeah, we should probably go back to talk about
Yeah.
But it's all associated about the same thing. And that's kind of like what I'm fascinated about because, offline, we've been chatting a lot about time and commitment and just, how to make the most of your time and things like that. And, having experienced this with Rocket League, like there was a period of time that's all I was playing. I was, if I ever had time for gaming, I'd only play Rocket League and I loved it and I still love that game. But I'd almost look at it as a commitment. It was like I was committed to playing that game. Like it was a job, but it wasn't a job. But just to be clear, but it felt like I needed to play X amount, and I was like calculating the Rocket Pass and how many hours I'd need to play and all this stuff. Whereas I don't really have any games like that. I don't play any live service games, but I do really wonder, how many can really exist well in the marketplace. Because it feels like all the businesses have pushed into that direction. But I really question, once you've got like big players like Fortnite, like other sort of like games like that, like the Destinies, how many of them can you really have? Like even if Anthem was really good, I feel like it needs to be exceptional to be
Obviously,
able to
there's a limit because you've got a finite number of people playing games and you've got a finite number of hours in the day. So there's an absolute limit to that. And I think it now has become a case of different game developers and studios and publishers competing against each other for people's time. That's what it's become. And all of these games are literally marketed and the thinking behind them is, how do we get more people? How do we get their share of the day to play our game instead of playing a competitor's game? And that's what it comes down to. And I think there is still room for those kind of games, and I think there's still room in innovation because you get people going, okay, I've had enough of Fortnite. Let's say I'm happy to go try something else and get into that more. So there's still room for stuff, but it's a case of how much money do you want to invest in the gamble? Because it's quite a bit of money you got to invest in setting these games up to draw people into your game, to make them have that decision to go, you know what, I'll give up on Fortnite and the time that's spent and I'll come to your game. And I just don't know if Dragon Age has that history and the amount of marketing required to be able to get people onto it from that perspective. It's an uphill battle for EA, I think.
So I just want to talk a bit about Anthem.
Yeah.
Yes.
So first of all, I actually feel really bad for the developers that have spent all their time trying to rework this game because no one likes having their hard work, even if you're getting paid for it. It's still you personally vested in the work that you do sometimes, and having it essentially scrapped. I hope that some of the work that they did maybe can be repurposed. I've heard someone say that at some point maybe. Oh, the next Mass Effect has these suits that you can fly around.
Nice. That'd be awesome, actually.
Because honestly, like I only played probably about 5 hours of Anthem, and my time with it was actually pretty good. It's a very technically well-made game. The flying mechanics were great. Shooting felt pretty good. And I didn't get anywhere close to that end game to then experience what I think a lot of people were let down by. But the core of the game seemed pretty good, and obviously had a lot of thought put into it. But it just wasn't. It wasn't really. It didn't hook me, and I think that's probably the thing with a lot of people as well. Why they may not have stuck with the game is it just doesn't feel like there's a hook there. But it is a shame. I honestly think it was probably a bad decision all round to spend that amount of time myself, because this didn't feel like a Destiny situation or a Final Fantasy Realm Reborn or games that that essentially turned it around. Because Destiny, a lot of people forget that Destiny at launch went through a lot of woes, and they turned that around. And obviously, Final Fantasy 14 is the huge one.
Well, I've got a counterpoint on that, but I just wanted to see if Mike shared your view about should they have kept on working on this game?
Oh, it's a tough one. So I finished the game on PC, mostly single player. I think I played with the G-Man, as we like to call him, one of our friends, a little bit. But it was mostly single player, and I did finish the entire game, and I actually enjoyed the experience. I thought it got a little repetitive, even in the single player component. But because I only played really the single player stuff, I didn't care at all about the end game stuff that I think a lot of people did. So to me, it was actually a good experience. I felt it could have used a little bit more polish, and there were certain elements that felt like they clearly rushed the game out, and they could have added a bit more to it, specifically around the story, around the way the pacing happened, around the fact that he always went back to this hub. There was a bit of continuity issues in that sense, but the game itself, as Swinny said, was solid. The flying was fantastic, felt really, really good. The weapons felt great. The abilities were awesome. It was a really, really solid game. And it's a shame that you can't sell a game like that just as a single player experience for, $40-50. You rely on the fact that you need to do that end game content to keep people coming back to it. So, yeah, I think I do agree with Swinny on that one. I do feel that they probably could have put more into it and made it a success, but I don't know what's going on at EA. They obviously had priorities. I think working in the conditions that we currently work, on that point, I actually notice even with the team that I'm working with, we're all in the same city, yet we've started to really grow apart, and it's made some conversations more difficult. It's made collaborating on a bunch of things more difficult. And I can see how this would affect something like Anthem as well. So I think it's a shame overall. I really enjoyed Anthem for what it was when it came out, and I thought it had real good potential. And I actually was waiting till they added a whole bunch more stuff and Nyx was going to come out to go back to it and see how much it's changed. But I guess I'll just have to remember the experiences as they were, because it's probably not going to happen anymore.
So I think that's like getting back to my counterpoint to with what Swinny was saying, and putting my business hat on, just like looking at this, like Anthem was the 5th best-selling game in 2019, which is kind of wild when you think about it. And that's not just dollar sales and stuff like that. That's selling volume, and they have a player base of anywhere from like 5 to 10 million, maybe higher, right? I think from a business sense, to be honest, it makes a lot of sense to have a crack at trying to make something of this game. Like, to me, that does actually make perfect sense. Obviously, it hasn't worked out. But I mean, like, for what, $5 million investment for a dev team to try to pull something together versus like a player base, if they can get something working. And to your point, Mike, I think a lot of people, if they did release like an Anthem next, I feel like people would have jumped in and have a crack at it and just, what is this? And it had such a bad reputation that I feel like if it was a 8 out of 10, or, as our friend, I've forgotten his name. What's his name? Cam. 7 out of 10 even. Then people would have said, this is pretty decent. Because I think the bar was set so low that I feel like people would have been receptive for it to be like, okay, it's competent. It's fine.
But it was a decent game to me. To me, it was probably like an 8 out of 10 almost in terms of the single player campaign. I thought it was a really solid game. I just think people had really high expectations for it because it came right off the back of Mass Effect not delivering what it was meant to deliver. It was really highly hyped. There were a lot of stories I remember back then about how the reason Mass Effect didn't do as well as it should have and development wasn't as great as it should have been is because they pivoted a lot of the resources onto Anthem. So there was this huge hype, kind of understandably so, given what they did to the Mass Effect IP.
Also, that first glimpse they gave us...
Oh, it looked amazing.
Yeah, that was one of the best first impressions you could ever make with a game.
So people had a lot of hype for it, so I can see why they felt burnt. But just one more thing on that. Yeah. I think the issue is if you start a game with relatively low expectations, or you meet the expectations that you set out there, it's a lot easier to sell people stuff. It's a lot easier to get them to purchase things in game. The problem with something like this, and I can kind of see how EA would have made this decision, is they went, we are now on the wrong foot. People don't have a positive experience about us. How do we deliver something where they're willing to pay money for it instead of just looking and going, are you serious? You want me to pay for this now as well? Like, you want me to keep paying you in microtransactions, even though you just deliver this half-assed thing? And I think they probably did that. But again, if they actually delivered a really good quality product, people would have gone, okay, this is actually pretty good. I'm willing to pay for these skins. I'm willing to pay for this stuff. And they would have made it a viable, IP. So, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to throw to final thoughts from Swinny, just on sort of, Anthem, but then also, that space around BioWare, like where they're at as a studio.
I think they've done well to make people start to get distracted, as Mike has said before in the past. Oh, look, shiny thing, Mass Effect Trilogy. Ooh, So I think that they're doing the right things they need to. This doesn't help, but I think at this point, a lot of people just don't care about Anthem in general. So they're, Anthem's not getting reworked. Oh, whatever. That was old news, For us that are paying a lot more attention to it, but I think the general people have moved on a long time ago. So.
That's exactly what I was going to ask as well. I'm not familiar with who's still left there. I know Casey Hudson left, and then did he come back for a while?
He left, came back, and then left again.
Then he left again now? Okay, great. And I'm sure other people within who were, originally from BioWare / through the original Mass Effect era. I know the Mass Effect 1 and 2 writer left. There was an article about that recently, wasn't there?
Director of Dragon Age left at the same time as Casey Hudson as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of the people who... So now to me, BioWare it's just a name to some extent. And I apologize to people who are still there, that have been there through the entire journey. Unfortunately, I'm not across that. But I feel like it's not the same BioWare that is the BioWare we remember fondly from our childhoods and the BioWare we remember through the Mass Effect series. It's a different thing now. So I think the expectations are probably going to have to be different as well as to what the studio and what the name BioWare means nowadays.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I do think, like, having worked at lots of different organizations, there is a bit of an energy that you have at a place that has had a lot of success. And there's almost a mentality, even if it's not where it was before, there's almost a mentality that goes, well, hey, we're BioWare, we can capture that again. And that type of mentality, it's very hard to instill into people. That, magic can happen here. It's very hard to do that in new places. So, I mean, that's the one probable benefit, I think, just around the name and everything. But I think you're right, Swinny. I think, look, clear the decks on Anthem. Mass Effect Trilogy comes out. If that's a big success and everyone's really genuinely happy with it, which I hope that, because I want to get it, I think that would then set them up for Dragon Age, which you think would be the next game up. But geez, that feels like that's still another year plus away. So we'll, I guess, watch that space. Just heading into a whole series of Sony news. And to start, PSVR2 has been announced. And, yes, Sony had a state of play, but no, that's not where they announced it. And also, we had Sony's head, Jim Ryan, have a very extensive interview, but no, that's not where you announce it. So PSVR2 was announced in a blog post.
What the heck?
And I think for the most part, people are a bit meh on the news, but I think this is really massive news just from a VR perspective. And I said this to a mate who is huge on VR, absolutely loves it, uses it every day, that PSVR is the market share leader in VR in the world. And he's like laughing like, you're an idiot. No, it's not. And then we started looking at the figures and the numbers and he's like, oh, geez, it is. But even with that, PSVR on the PS4 didn't even sell as much as the iToy did back on the PS2.
Wow.
So just on that note, that's just proof that you just never question integot.
Yes. Never question the authority. But the price point was really good on that, right? I mean, when you think about it, the entry point to having VR on a PC, yes, graphically it's going to be better, whatever, is massive. You need a $2,000 PC. You need another, at the time, at least when PSVR was around, you needed to fork out at least like what, $600-700 for a VR headset.
Oh,
I'm talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
when PSVR
Yeah.
came out. Whereas PSVR was at the $450 mark from memory. Sometimes you could get it down. I got my set for about $270 or
Oh,
something.
that's a good deal.
Brand
Australian.
new. It was
That's a really good
Australian.
deal.
That
Like
was a
200
really good
US,
deal.
yeah.
Yeah. They sometimes went on special to that price point, which was insanely good for what you get. And I can see why it was way more accessible. And a lot of people had a PlayStation. And on top of that, I can fork out another $400 and get this way, way cheaper than trying to do it on PC.
Yeah. And it seems like they're looking at the PSVR and addressing most of the main concerns that people have. So with the PSVR 1, it was a mess of wires, boxes, breakout boxes, plugs, everything. And most people that I heard, like you included, Mike, really loved it, but very painful to set up. Where do you store it? Where do you put it? How do you connect it in? I know that people are disappointed that this is a single cord device. Personally, I actually like that because, to have wireless setup, it is actually very annoying from a VR perspective. Often you'll have to have, better than the standard Wi-Fi that most people have. So I think it's like Wi-Fi AC or Wi-Fi 6 as some people refer to it as, which is really rare at the moment. Again, yeah, in the future it'll be common, but not right now. And also with the Move controllers, they were built for PS3 to copy the Wii. So they were never really designed for VR without VR in mind. And it very much appears that they want to take the good things of the DualSense, but honestly, I think everyone knows that what they're going to do is they're going to look to copy what Oculus is doing with the Quest and other VR sets where they have the tracking cameras embedded into the visor itself that then has, something on the controllers to then send the signal back rather than having breakout boxes.
Sensors.
Yeah, which I think that to me makes sense. You've got to remove as many barriers as possible to VR. And I think a cord is not a bad thing. I think if
a cord is a good
decent
thing.
length, it's going to be fine.
It's definitely a decent length.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I did absolutely, I can echo those thoughts that stopped me from enjoying my PlayStation VR is it was a mess to set up because you need the camera, so you got to figure a place for that. You got to put that in. You need a bazillion different cables. And honestly, without the instruction book, I still struggle trying to figure out how to set it up because it's kind of obvious once you do it, but there's just so many cables going left, right, and center. It becomes really annoying. And having used the Oculus now and having enjoyed, at least as a standalone, the freedom of not having a cable, to me, that is definitely the future of VR. It's the number one, I think, barrier to mass adoption, to be honest, having that sense of proper freedom of movement. And PSVR was far from it. It had way too many barriers to be able to do that. Now, in terms of the cable itself, I totally agree with what he said, but I think there's also, there are quite a few people, I think, that do have the technology required to get a semi-decent wireless solution going. So it would have been nice if it's an option that they'll enable. Now, I don't know if they didn't say it doesn't work wirelessly in that sense. They just said it's a single cable. We've tried to make everything easier, which makes sense because that's the kind of marketing you want. But I do hope that they have the option available as well to have some sort of a wireless ability if you happen to have, the Wi-Fi network and everything required to do that.
I don't
sick.
think it would. Like,
It probably won't.
If you
but
read the press release, just the way it's structured and stuff like that, I don't think they would. And I think also don't forget that I think they would want to make this as cheap as possible to allow the barriers to lower even further. And the more processing you do, and then if you have wireless, it means then you have a lithium battery. You need a way to charge that. You need, all of these kind of things. And I know that this is like down in the weeds, but even with lithium batteries, that means the way you ship it, the way you send it around the world, there's actually a lot of restrictions.
Yeah.
And,
but I mean, look at Oculus.
Keeps on adding the cost, right?
It does. But I think I would suspect, I don't know, there's probably numbers somewhere out there that maybe Facebook are making a loss on the Oculus 2 devices.
Yeah, I would not be shocked at all.
I wouldn't be shocked either.
I actually can't even believe how, just for context, just quickly, like Oculus Quest, which is what you're talking about, the Quest 2?
Quest 2,
yep. So what it is essentially a fairly decent Android phone without the phone functionality, but like a fairly decent Android phone, like good CPU, good battery, and pretty high def screens and, you know, headphones and these controllers, which I don't think are cheap either, just given some of the tech in them, and cameras, all for, what is it, like $299 US? Like,
yeah. I ordered one for
how's it possible that they couldn't
420
be losing
Australian
money? Yeah.
It's insane. Like I don't see how, because not only do they obviously work with PC as well, because we'll talk about it in a bit when we talk about Half Life Alyx, but they're standalone and they work extremely well standalone. So they've got the battery in there, they've got the performance required to be able to do it all standalone. Battery life is fairly decent. Controllers are 100% standalone. Literally, there's no wires whatsoever. You turn it on, you download a game, you play it in VR. It's insane. To do all of that for $300 US or in dollaroos, you can get it on Amazon now for 420 imported.
Yeah,
it's the
but
international version, but still.
It's like
sorry, that's
$470.
dollary dues. Thank
Dollary
you. very much,
dues.
right?
Yes.
I think it's more
The
like
important correction, a big week in corrections.
yeah, it's a live correction.
Look,
it's more like $480 or $460.
It's $480. It is $479 officially, but that's still cheap.
That's
absolutely.
crazy.
I think it's
That's
extremely cheap. I mean, think about what it required originally. So when I still have the Gear VR from Samsung, and I don't remember exactly how much it was, but I swear it was like around $130 just for the device itself. And it was a glorified cardboard, Google Cardboard kind of device, really, in the end, because you still had to plug your own phone in. And a lot of the phones that you needed at the time to use this were like $1,000 phones. So I know back then I had the Note 6 Edge Plus or whatever it was to be able to do it. Whereas now the whole package is at most, if you actually order it through the official channel in Australia, under $500, and that's actually pretty cheap for VR. So we're not advertising Oculus, and by the way, I know that there's a whole bunch of people and ourselves as well that have a huge issue with Facebook forcing you to log in.
You own one, but
No, I'm borrowing one just like
buying
you,
one, aren't you?
but I have ordered one. Yes.
Yeah, well, so you don't have an issue with it, but
I still have an issue with it, but I'm willing to kind of go, you know what? It's still no. I will let them, have their way with me.
Can I
because
just
it's a good value device, and it's a way cheaper entry point into PC VR than actually buying, because the next thing is something like a HP that's twice the price.
Last week you were fighting and arguing that if you don't have ethics, if you don't have morals, if you don't work for Activision, but you yourself say you hate Facebook and don't believe in it and don't like it, and then you're going to go pay money and sign up to their data interrogation program.
Yeah, but my account has nothing on it. I don't know what they're gonna get.
Oh, but you got to be careful with that. People have done that. They've set up
it's
fake
not.
accounts.
It's not a fake account. It's a real account. It's just it's not. I don't have anything there. I don't really.
Do you have
I don't have
friends
any.
on it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You can still have a legitimate account, but not have any friends.
Do you have trackers? Do you have like all that stuff box siloed off in your browser? Because otherwise, it will start collect all that.
Yeah,
information
it will track on everything.
Maybe. I think I have my girlfriend added to it. That's it.
Well, that
and
just
of course
opens the door.
it opens the door. But again, I don't give a shit because congrats, there's nothing they do, and I don't plan on getting anything through the official Oculus store.
Anyway, let's go back to PSVR. But look, like I think so. PSVR when it launched, it was $399 US. So I feel like with this, they would want to still try to target like a $349 US, maybe even $299 if they can. And that's why I'm actually glad to see the whole cable thing, because some people won't have good wireless, then they'll have a bad experience with it, then they'll go, this doesn't work. I just think like try to keep it simple as possible and try to keep it as cheap as possible. And if that means that for the most part, they've got very low end, cheap CPU on there with a very good screen, good sound, very good controllers, and just a single cable going straight in, I'd pretty much almost guarantee I'll get it. And I actually think that this is why as well. If you look at the PS5, you'll notice that like the ports are like right in the middle, like right in the center. Like it's not an accident that they were put there. And also there's a USB-C port right in the middle of the PS5. And I'm almost certain that, it's with the thought of, the next VR unit will just be a USB-C cable that goes straight into the middle of the front of the PS5.
Yeah.
Which kind of gives it the most maximum room to move and everything like that. The one thing that I'm really keen to know is because they've you can see this, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. They've been pushing more into PC, and I think they noticed that they sell a game on PC, it doesn't hurt their PlayStation sales. It just grows it grows the pie. It doesn't shrink the pie or cut it up in different ways. So I really, really, really hope that, because I don't think there's anyone else in the market who's going to do this. So I really hope that PSVR2 is from the start able to be a PC VR unit.
Because you can use the original ones on PC, but it's a hack job.
Yeah, it's a very...
I have used them. It's a hack job.
It's a mess. I don't want to do that.
Well, at least when I tried it, you had to have special software. But yeah, absolutely agree.
And it's like a lot of stuff that I don't want to install onto my PC.
Same, yeah. You want it out of the box. Yeah. Why not? Yeah, they're already porting a lot of the games. You're absolutely right. It's extra money for them. So
it would be like, and for them, I don't know the downside if they allowed it to be a PC VR unit, really.
What is the downside? They sell more units because there's people who think it's a great price point and it's a competitor potentially to the Oculus.
That's probably where it gets into. Are they selling it at a loss or not? Because if they're trying to sell it at a loss, they may not want a lot of people buying it on PC who aren't in the PlayStation ecosystem.
Yeah, potentially.
But I mean, they could start up their own PlayStation store. I mean, this is kind of getting me on this train of thought of, are PlayStation going to open up a PlayStation Store app on Windows and start selling their games through that? I feel like that's a real possibility. Then they could link that in through the PSVR unit. I don't know. I'm really keen. I got my eye on this because I will not ever buy an Oculus.
Got my eye on you.
So, and I don't see anyone else getting the market with a competitive price. I mean, Xbox, come at us. Like, please, make a VR unit. Like, make it...
I reckon they will.
I'd almost probably... it's hard because I'm not an Xbox person, but yeah, if it was a good one, I'd look into it. I'd wait for PSVR 2. So... No, I'm really excited about it. I think it's really cool. And I've been desperate to play Astrobot, which is, it's hard to say because it's not the first time Astro has been in a game. He was in another game before, but yeah, that's the probably one of the best VR games from what I've heard. So I'm really, really keen to play that because you've played that, Mike, right?
No, I actually haven't. There's a few. I've got a whole... So I bought a whole bunch of VR games on PlayStation. No joke, probably about 30 of them at least. And I think I played 2.
Oh, wow.
So I've got a whole backlog. So I'm looking forward, now that I have that cable that I received in the mail, I'm looking forward to taking out the PS...
You're not joking about buying too many games in past
years.
No,
man. I'm not joking. I had so many. I had at least 10 physical copies. Arizona Sunshine, the Robinson, The Journey, whatever that's called.
Robinson Crusoe.
I forget what it's called. There's so many. I bought. Oh my gosh, what's the flight game? Ace Combat, just because of the VR component of it. Did I ever play it? Nope.
But you definitely play Astro. Like a lot of people gave that game of the year in the year it came out.
Wow. So. Okay. Now I'll do it for sure. So I've got the cable. That was actually my plan this week, especially in light of the news we just had.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into more Sony news. So the PlayStation State of Play came out this week, announced earlier in the week. Everyone got excited. There's been a few announcements, actually. We've had, BlizzCon, Nintendo Direct, Pokemon Presents, and now PlayStation State of Play. The two big things that we'll cover, I guess it's what makes us interested. The show opened with Crash, which I thought was very weird, given that we already knew a lot of the information. So I was, getting a bit concerned. But, they did have some bangers in this. And we'll start with Final Fantasy 7 Remake Intergrade. Very close to integot, actually.
It's a remastered remake.
Yeah, so coming to PS5. So it's going to come to PS5 as a standalone PS5 game with improved textures, lighting, and load times, as you would expect. So that's on the 10th of June. Photo mode, which is becoming just like a stupid standout in all games. One thing that I'm getting concerned about, and I know you have massive concerns on this, Swinny, in a second, I'll throw to you, is just the option to prioritize between 60 FPS and 4K resolution. My early sense of the generation is this is going to be the way it goes, which is alarming. But I'll throw to you in a second, Swinny, before you give any spoilers to the Final Fantasy 7 story. But I just wanted to really land this point around, like, it's quite odd how they launched this. So they came out with this game and they were really clear in the presentation. If you have the PS4 version of Final Fantasy 7, you will get Final Fantasy 7 Remake for PS5, the upgrade for free. The caveat was if you have a physical version of it and now you have a PS5 digital version, you will not be able to upgrade it. But then there was something in the Japanese text that got translated that said, if you get it for free, if you get Final Fantasy VII through PlayStation Plus, you will not get the upgrade for free. And everyone's like, well, wait, hang on a second. It was never released in PlayStation Plus, which made people go, wait a second, is it going to be a PlayStation Plus game? And I think it really forced Sony's hand to announce, and we'll cover it in the bargain bin, that next month's major free game will be Final Fantasy VII Remake.
What a plot twist.
But will not be able to be upgraded. So it's very, very strange what they're doing
I've
here.
got a question around that.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about the way that games work on PlayStation, like the store and, like the SKUs or whatever. On Xbox, if you purchase a game digitally, it's like, if you get like a game through Games of Gold digitally, you can't repurchase that game in any way. So in this situation, if someone downloads a PS Plus, can they never then, because even the physical disc is treated as if you already own it. So it's like,
right.
I'm like, can you never do the upgrade path if you download?
But this is going to be a different
Plus?
SKU, because this is going to be the Remake Intergrade. So I think it's a completely separate game.
No, but
what I'm
Swinny's saying for the PS4. For the PS4,
see,
it only has one SKU.
Yeah.
I can give you part of the answer, Swinny, because I'm a lapsed PS Plus member. So I, very diligent, as you know that I am. Every time any game comes up, no matter how bad, I would always add it to my profile, right? Because then it's like, okay, I can play it later. The weird thing for me is when I go to my games, it's super unclear if I can play a game or not. So some of the games, if I go to try to play them, it's like, I don't believe I can even purchase it. I can just download it, and then it will say, oh, you don't have the license to this because you're not a PlayStation Plus member. And I don't think it pops up as like I can buy it from memory. Now, I'm definitely going to be wrong about that.
Yeah, let's double check that.
But it's just not clear. It's really not clear that you can or can't.
The reason I ask is if you download it from PS Plus, like, is that then going to lock you out of being able to do the upgrade path? And essentially, at that point, to play it on PS5, you have to repurchase on PS5.
Well, let me actually check, right? Because you know how I was talking about remote play at the intro of the show? I'll remote play into my because I can't do it because I'm in my setup where I actually play my PS5. I'll remote play. I'm just showing the screen now. I'll remote play into my PS5 to then check if I can actually buy some of the games that I downloaded for free. But yeah, like one thing is with the UI of PS5, it's very unclear for me. So like Journey, and we'll touch on this soon, but Journey and the Nathan Drake collection were released for free. It wasn't as part of PS Plus. There was a time where Sony, as part of their Play at Home initiative last year, said, here's the game for free. Just, log in, you click it, and it's yours forever. I am able to download those games and play them. I was playing Journey a little bit last night.
Because they're not linked to PS Plus,
No, they're not. But I can't tell the difference between those games and the games that I got through PS Plus.
I don't know
the
if
games
they actually
bought, by the way. I can't tell the difference between any of them.
Well, I feel like, to be completely honest, I don't know if they thought that through in their interface. You know what
Probably
I mean?
Not.
I don't know if they went through that level of thinking with some of that stuff. But let's check this out. And by the way, can I just confirm, so you're a PS4 Pro lapsed?
No, I said PS Plus.
I know, I was trying to make a joke about prolapse.
Okay, we don't need that.
And the fact that you have a PS4.
All right. Can I just, while you're checking that, I'll just talk to Intergrade a bit.
Yes.
So the big news of Intergrade was that there's a brand new episode featuring Yuffie, who isn't like, not only is not in Remake, but also in the story, the part of the story in Final Fantasy VII.
I think they are in Remake, right?
Yuffie's not in Remake, no.
Oh,
so,
okay.
She is now.
No. Let me explain this. So Yuffie's not in Remake, and the part of the story that Remake covers, Yuffie is not. Of the original game, Yuffie comes just after that, right? So this is the first time we've seen Yuffie in any way in Remake, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's linking a lot into Dirge of Cerberus, so Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus, which was a PS2 game starring Vincent Valentine. Not the most fondly loved Final Fantasy VII entry by a lot of people, but there is obviously hardcore fans that do enjoy it. And so seems to be tying a lot of elements there, and they showed off. I've never played Dirge of Cerberus, so this is just based on all secondhand information. I think it's Vice or I guess it's Vice. One of the big bads of Dirge of Cerberus was shown off in the trailer as like a big, he's part of this now. So I think they're really starting to bring in what's called a compilation of Final Fantasy VII into this. So it's absolutely fantastic that they've got this episode. It is the episode, from all accounts, and I've looked this up multiple times, and I hope it changes, or I hope this is incorrect, that the episode is exclusive to PS5. So it's not like you can then go, load up a remake on my PS4 and it'll just be announced as DLC. I hope they do that.
I think they've already confirmed that you can buy the PS. Sorry. No, I'm completely wrong. It's going to be PS5 exclusive. That's what I heard.
Okay.
So this is really, really great. It makes sense from what I know about what they do with the storyline of Remake to do this. It's not like they've shoehorned this in. It's 100%. It's a great addition. And I think, it's going to be really, really cool to see how it all plays out.
Okay,
totally. And
so I've got an update. I've got an update. So I was wrong. It's very, extremely subtle.
Yes, you're wrong. Damn.
Yeah, correction live in the show.
Didn't we just say you're never wrong about 20 minutes ago?
I always correct myself. I said I
swear we just said that.
I'm very careful with my language. I think I said I can't tell where it is.
I know.
So it won't work on the phone, but damn. Oh yeah, it's just coming to resolution. So there's like a real subtle PS Plus logo overlay in the top right for games that I got through PS Plus.
Okay.
And that means that I can't play them right now, but when I click in it, it says view product and I can buy them.
Okay.
Right, okay, which makes sense. That's what you'd expect, I think.
But that's only because your subscription's lapsed.
Prolapsed, yeah.
So in a situation where it hasn't lapsed, you can't take the upgrade path because,
I
we
believe
don't know.
you'd be able to buy it, right?
So you can still buy a game that you've got access to.
I think
you're
so.
able to play via PS Plus. Okay, because
You
I know on
should be able to buy
Xbox,
it now, yeah.
on Xbox you wouldn't be able to do that. That's why I wasn't sure how it would work on PlayStation.
Yeah, PlayStation's a bit weird. They had also the issue where people were downloading, like it was actually defaulting to the wrong version. It was defaulting to the PS4 version of some games.
Yes.
And people were playing the PS4
version.
version and they didn't even know, which to me is such a comment of this generation.
But I think they fixed that. It was just at the start while they were working out the kinks and stuff.
But just to that point of people not knowing, when I was watching the 1080p 60 frames per second version of the trailers. Honestly, I couldn't really tell the difference between Final Fantasy VII on PS4 Pro and Final Fantasy VII on
Until
PS5.
they got to the second part, exactly the same. I'm like,
and I'm
what is the difference? I'm like, I can't tell. This is like when you go to the optometrist and they go, is option A better or option B? And you're like, my God, it looks exactly the same to me.
Yeah, it's more like, are they saying it hard on one or the other? It must be A.
So I just want to also mention some wild related news. So just after, they also dropped, or during the show, 2 new Final Fantasy VII games for mobile. One of which is a battle royale game called The First Soldier. So that's based around, I guess, the people that become the first part of the soldier unit. And this is the weirdest one, an episodic game that's a retelling, and they basically say it covers the entire compilation of Final Fantasy VII, which is 5 things. So it's 4 separate games and Advent Children. Now, a lot of people are like, they're remaking the whole thing while they're trying to do another remake, because it's like a turn-based... It's almost like a remastered version of the original in some ways, the way it looks. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's going to be that. I think they're going to take certain important parts of the compilation and story and say, this is the episode about the bombing run. This is the episode about this. This is the episode about this.
That makes more sense.
They're not going to remake the whole... because not only that, how do you remake a movie?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just really, really weird. And apparently they're going to be available worldwide. It's not just a Japanese only thing like a lot of Square Enix mobile games have been in the past. So.
Seeing that, actually.
You're right, Swinny, because I'm just reading through it again. And I was reading through it before, but... it's going to cover all of the timeline and all of the events of Final Fantasy VII. And when they say that, they mean the full compilation of Final Fantasy VII. So I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's going to, they're going to bring to life all the events, all the story beats. The thing in the rabbit hole I did not go down, but I was seeing in the YouTube comments and just reading through that there's some theory, and Swinny, you're like way into RPGs more than I am, but people have a theory around the structure and timeline of Final Fantasy VII and what's the right order, I think, of like games and how they all link together. Because someone was talking about that this confirms the AC to BC to CC to DC to EC theory. I was like, wow, what are you talking
The
about?
what to the who now?
There's some theory about Final Fantasy VII and the structure and the sort of flow of the games. And it's very much like, I don't know if you were into Game of Thrones, where like the theories of who Jon Snow's parents are. And there was like an acronym to describe it. That's what it reminds me of.
No,
and
wasn't across
it's just that with Square, they actually did list the games, the movies and the games and the properties in the order of this theory, which is, and it's not an accident. It's not like these games came out in order. So it was like, or movies in some cases.
Interesting.
It was like Advent Children, before Crisis, Crisis Core, and then Dirge of Cerberus. Like we're all like in that order from when they showed it.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are obviously sequels to others, but there's ones that like, and that I never played, like Before Crisis and Crisis Core, where there's a bit of understanding. So that's pretty cool.
I must admit, like when I looked at this game and I was looking at the gameplay and stuff like that, I was like, I kind of wish it was coming out on the Switch. Like I might actually pick it up if it was like $15-20.
Oh, the Ever Crisis.
Ever Crisis,
yeah, that would make sense for the Switch,
Yeah.
but it's also going to be Square Enix have a very bad history of the way they monetize their games, like Final Fantasy, Brave Exvius, and like just a whole bunch of those. Like, there's games I'm like, oh, that looks cool, and then you go in there and it's just a horrible gacha game, and so we'll see what the actual structure of these games are.
But Final Fantasy VII Remake, super into this. I personally don't really see the benefit in the upgrade that much. I think the 60 frames per second is the huge one, right?
What?
Like that is
Okay, so how about
really
we ask
excited.
the one and only person out of this entire group that's actually played the game, which is me, and so far I haven't really said anything on this. So my 2 cents is, as the one person that's played this game already, I haven't finished it. I put it down after a certain point.
1 hour.
Especially when the
standard.
Well, no. I think it was quite a bit more than that. But to be honest, it was, I bought it. I think I bought it at launch, but I already knew the PS5 was going to come out, and I thought in the back of my mind, how much of this do I really want to play? Do I want to play all of it, or do I want to just leave it and then come back to it when guaranteed it's going to be available on PS5 and it's going to run better? Because it obviously runs at 30 on console, and it looks fantastic and everything. It's just that if I could play it at 60, I absolutely would play it at 60. So I knew that was going to happen. I strongly suspected it was going to happen. And I put it down after it was probably like about 5 or 6 hours into it. And so it wasn't a lot, I agree. And and it was kind of a waste of a full price game that I was looking forward to for ages.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of glad now that I didn't. So,
But you would have got it for free next month.
I would have just gotten it for free, yeah. But I guess this way, I can upgrade to the PS5 version now because I've got a physical copy. So it works out all right. But I agree. I agree with some of the stuff you said around when I watched some of the comparisons at the start of it, especially. I could not tell the difference. I ran it I double checked, made sure my the settings on YouTube that I was watching it were correct. Yes, it's on high definition. I think it was higher than high def. I forget, but anyway, it was high. But then when they showcase some of the other things like the volumetric fog, the different lighting effects, you could absolutely tell the difference in places like that.
I think from what I've heard, one of the biggest things, other than 60 frames, of course, is the textures. So there were some really dodgy textures in Remake. And from what people have seen and compared, they fixed a lot of that up. So,
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that they've done a full re-release of this game, given that you would expect part 2, part 3, part N, who knows where they'll end, will all come on PS5. So it'd be so odd if it was like stranded on PS4. So I think you're right.
Yeah, no,
Mike.
there's no way it would have been stranded. Yeah,
it was always going to be lined up.
Of course, it was always been lined up.
Yeah.
So number one, it was always going to be lined up. Number two, eventually there's going to be a remaster of the remaster it'll be a remaster of the remake. No, it'll be a remaster of the remastered remake, where they'll have all of the episodes in one package, maybe towards the end of the PlayStation 5 era. I don't know.
It's more like the PlayStation 6 to PlayStation 6.
Well, no, it'll be like at the
Their
end of the
development time
PS5
frame.
era.
I
I
think
feel
so,
maybe
too.
we'll see. We'll see what the heck's going to happen with
If
that.
they do a 3-part, I
And-
think there is some chance that
yeah,
they will,
I was thinking a 3-part.
you know, maybe 2 to 3 years from now release part 2, and then
Yep.
right when the PS5's dying, they'll release the last part. That's hoping.
Here's the thing. I feel like the Yuffie DLC makes sense because it's almost like a segue into the next episode to some extent.
Sure.
I like how they're introducing that character because it is a character that's a core part of the game. I especially because back in the day she had one of the most powerful weapons because of the way the game mechanic worked, which I think thought was really cool, and I hope they keep that in this. And it makes sense that they had this as like a segue DLC almost to introduce the character. So when the second episode comes out, it's like, oh, I know all about Yuffie, and this is so. That's all I have to say on this. I think unless you guys have any other thoughts, should we talk about something else, Swinny?
And just to remind everyone, so for your case, you'll get the upgrade, but you won't get the Yuffie DLC. You have to pay extra for that DLC. And if you buy it from scratch from PS5, you get the DLC incorporated in the game. Swinny, do you want to take away the next one that we wanted to highlight? Like, there are a lot of other things in the state of play, but this is probably the only other thing that caught our eye, Solar Ash.
Yeah, I won't spend too long on this because the big news was Final Fantasy. But yeah, Solar Ash. So Heart Machine, developer behind the very critically acclaimed Hyperlight Drifter, they gave us the biggest look at gameplay for Solar Ash, which was actually announced back in March 2019 and was originally known as Solar Ash Kingdom. So it's actually set in the same universe as Hyperlight Drifter, but it's not being pitched as a direct sequel.
And doesn't look like it's made on Game Maker.
No, yeah, so this is definitely...
Hey, Hyperlight Drifter was freaking awesome.
That was on Game Maker. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, Hyperlight Drifter was a 2D, like a top-down,
beautiful looking
action game. Oh, absolutely, and just absolutely stunning game. And this is very much a 3D, really cool. What looks like an action platformer of sorts. It looks really, really great. They've got Disaster Piece, the composer from Solar Ash and Fez, coming back for this as well.
Something about that. Their music is just so... Yeah. I can't describe it. It's awesome.
So it's coming out on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC, which is an Epic Games Store exclusive.
Ooh.
There was some leaked typo kind of thing where it said it's coming out to Steam in 2029, which is obviously was a typo. But the fact that there
why
was
do
anything...
they keep doing this stuff? How do they keep doing these typos, man?
But that does...
That sounds more like a joke.
That does hint at the fact that, eventually it may come to outside of Epic Games Store. So it's very much likely for release around June this year, as per another... Well, it's not leaked, but another weird thing, which was Sony's recent CES, slides or presentation where they had a whole bunch of third-party release date info, and Solar Ash was part of that. So I'm super looking forward to this game. I'll be playing this on PC as I'm not on PlayStation owner at this point. But I'm super pumped. I do need to get back to finish Hyperlight Drifter. I got all the way to the end, and I can't remember why I stopped playing. But that game is amazing, and this game looks great as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think this is the type of game that I don't get hyped for, but if I played or when it comes out, I could get into it really easily. There's just something about the way that the game looks. I love the way it looks. But for whatever reason, it's just not the kind of game that hypes me. I just need to play it.
Would you say, though, you're maybe lightly hyper about it?
He's drifting away.
Oh, very good.
He's
very good voice. All right, well, maybe we'll get into the next piece of news. So Sony have announced that they've downsized and changed the operations of their Japan studios through a restructure and scale back. That's going to happen it's already happened, but it's been occurring over some time, but it's finally had confirmation. So this studio is very much a lifeblood and, part of the DNA for Sony. So developing games like Ape Escape, Loco Roco, Patapon. I'm going to struggle with Knack and Gravity Rush. And then also, obviously, as well, Astrobot, which has come out of this wider studio. They have provided support on many games, and I think that was one of the biggest facets of how they were organized previously. So, for instance, working very closely with From Software on games like Demon's Souls and Bloodborne, and also The Last Guardian. We have noticed, and we've noted some of the studio execs that have been leaving Japan studios, and just given Japanese business culture, which is not, just same as Western culture, doesn't mean it has to follow this model, but generally in Japanese business culture, most folk stay at the same organization. That's just the way it works. So you'll commonly see people, work at a place for 20, 30, 40 years. And it did seem strange that a lot of people were leaving the studio. A lot of key people were leaving the studio all the way back from November last year and even before then. And then, yes, it does seem very clear now that given the restructures that are occurring in this space as to why some people were leaving and, taking other opportunities when they could. One major thing that the reorg is going to show is they're going to disperse a lot of the talent and teams into other areas of Sony Interactive Entertainment, whether that be their game studios that they own or other operations. And they're going to refocus what was Japan Studio and push it all behind Team I've never actually said this word, Asobi, I guess it is. Team Asobi, the folk who make Astrobot. And, it's funny because this is actually, the way that we count games is if it's a pack-in, it's counted as a sale. So Astro's Playroom will sell, unless they change how it works, which I don't think they will, but Astro's Playroom will sell as many PS5s as they sell. So if PS5 sells 80 million copies, Astro's Playroom will be regarded as an 80 million seller. So Astro's Playroom is going to go down as one of the highest selling games of all time eventually.
I mean, it's kind of cheating, but you know what? It counts, and it's an amazing game.
It's an amazing game. It's a 10 out of 10 game for me. I love that game so much.
Wow, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, man. I love it.
It's still... It feels like it's weird. It's like it doesn't. I thought at first it'll just be a tech demo, especially because it's bundled in.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's more than a tech demo. It's a game that you could sell standalone, and it'll be an amazing game.
It's a small game. It's a game of the length of games that used to come out in my youth, like SNES.
Yeah, games. And I enjoyed that. I love that. Yeah.
And it's not like a 3-hour game. Like to do everything completed, speed runs, all that kind of. I think I'm now like in the top 10,000 in the speed runs and stuff like that.
Damn.
But I haven't played it that much. But I do want to probably play that a little bit more. But
it's your new Rocket League.
Yeah,
no. Get number one.
I'm actually really excited about this because I love Astro as a character. I think it's perfect for Sony to fall behind as a mascot. And it's shaping up that way. And
it totally is. It's absolutely their mascot now.
And it's exciting to me to see them. And honestly,
Crash.
As much as I want to see VR, like another Astro VR game, I would just love if they made like Astro's Playroom, but like full game. Like try to go, hey, we're going to try to compete against the Mario Odyssey style thing. I think that they could make an amazing game. Like
I think they will probably do that. Guaranteed. It's the new Crash Bandicoot of PlayStation. I reckon.
And it helps that they own it, whereas with Crash they don't. So, but very sad for the folk who have lost what they were doing before this. But hopefully there's some really good opportunities out there.
Well, I feel sorry for the people that have actually lost their jobs because there have been people laid off apparently.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's for me. This makes sense, 100%. And definitely from a business standpoint, there is a big part of PlayStation history that is lost from this restructure. So this studio dates all the way back to like '94. And we talk like just have a look. Go on Wikipedia, check out Japan Studio, and just see the games that they've been involved with. Some of the most iconic PlayStation franchises in history. And so it is it's very bittersweet. Sweet in the sense that it, like as I said, they're focusing on what makes sense.
Yeah.
But it is leaving a very big part of PlayStation history behind with this change.
And it does show that their approach to exclusives is quite interesting now. They own studios and they really do seem to almost let them do what they want. They just want high quality from them. So, they buy high quality AAA studios and really almost just go, hey, we just want you to stay at that level. That's what we want. And this approach that they were taking with like From Software with Bloodborne and Demon Souls, maybe that was frustrating people as well. I think I'd be really frustrated if I was working on Bloodborne and had some kind of intermediary at Sony sort of going, oh, no, we want the game to be more like this or that. Like if that's their bread and butter, it's almost like, dude, just like if you want us to make an exclusive, great. Tell us the direction and we'll make our game. You kind of know what you're paying for. if you get like a From Software or something like that, or a Blue Point. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
Well, I mean, from came back to them, so it must have, the first time around mustn't have been that bad. So.
Yeah, no, fair. I mean, that whole, like, I feel like we could have a whole special segment on sliding doors of what could have happened with Dark Souls, and it could have been an exclusive to Sony, which is crazy to think about. Like, that could have been devastating to Microsoft. But yeah, Mike, like, any other thoughts here?
No, absolutely nothing. Again, just like you guys said, my thoughts do actually go out to the people that have lost their job. I really hope that there's some sort of redundancy type arrangement that they have in Japan as well. I have no idea how they structure that stuff up. And I hope that, if there's people that have been there for a very long time, I can imagine how devastating it would be to lose your job after being at a company for 20 years, especially if culturally that's the sort of thing that you grew up with. So that's, yeah.
And in our last story in the Big Week in Sony podcast...
It just keeps coming, doesn't it?
Sony won't stop.
Sony news, more Sony news. And this was like an interesting one. So this was primarily from a GQ article with Jim Ryan. And just really like dropping things. And even like I don't know if you guys have read, I know Swinny would have. Mike, I don't know if you read through the GQ article, but it's quite funny to read an article where they're almost going, we almost didn't expect all this stuff to come out in the article.
It felt like the guy's like, oh, can I ask this question? And Jim Ryan's like, oh yeah, this and this and this and this.
Yeah, and I think any good reporter will ask the questions that even if they feel like, there's going to be a no. You're not going to tell me this. But yeah, they went through and he really went out and confirmed a lot of things and confirmed games that were pushing out and initiatives and things like that. So probably some of the biggest ones are, and I touched on it earlier in the podcast, but Sony is seeing dividends in releasing games on PC. It is not cutting into their sales of PlayStation or games on PlayStation. And I think, you're seeing this with things like, if you offer a game to Xbox Game Pass and you track the sales data, the game starts to sell more. And it's this kind of exposure lens. People get exposure to the game. People go, this is going to go off Game Pass. It's on sale at the moment. I'm just going to get it because I really like this game. And I would have never
tell
played
their friends.
It before. Correct. Yeah. And it creates a nice virtuous, circle of, sales. And, they're seeing that with PC. And Jim Ryan, who's the head of Sony Interactive Entertainment, has confirmed that they are going to push even more games into the PC sphere, starting with Days Gone, which I think is really smart. Like that game had a very bad launch in terms of most folk who were reviewing the game had a broken build of it. And some people just brutalized the game, gave it very low scores. Supposedly, people who played the later revisions of the game sort of went, hey, this has jumped 1 or 2 points up on a 10-point scale.
Okay.
So I actually am keen to try this game. This game's part of the PS
it's free.
Plus collection. If you have PS Plus, so
I have a physical copy of it as well, no less, and I have not played it. So
you might want to try it.
To be fair, I got that as a present, but still. Oh no, I started the intro. I'm like, this is exactly the kind of game I love. I love zombie games. I love post-apocalyptic games. Yeah. So it's perfect for me. I just too much other stuff, but it's absolutely high up on my list. So actually, I was tossing last night between that and Detroit Become Human. Become Human. As to which one I'll tackle next, and it ended up being Detroit. So I'm going to do Detroit.
I was literally going to play Detroit Become Human last night as well.
Whoa,
that's funny. Anyway, I'll pause there. So Days Gone, that's coming out Q2 2021. Yes, we don't know what other games are coming out to PC, but I mean, imagine if they put God of War on PC. It would be fascinating.
So that just brings me to the whole point about we haven't seen like much impact. Well, I know Horizon Zero Dawn was a huge game. I'm not underplaying that, but it wasn't God of War.
No.
So that's my question is like, how can you like? To me, that's like you can't make a judgment on call on that yet until you release a God of War or Last of Us on PC. Let me just finish. And also, you're releasing these games well after they come out. So at some point, do you start to reduce the time distance between when it launches on PlayStation and then see how that impacts it? Because I think at some point there will be a point where it makes sense where it's like, well, let's say Bloodborne 2, if that's ever a thing. Well, I know they're, if they ever put Bloodborne on PC as part of this, well, I know that might come to PC one day. So, the more you release, the more people might wait. So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, look, I think on that, the time thing, Sony's very conservative with these things. I think they will always wait a 12 to 18 month window before they re-release it on PC.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think you're spot on, Swinny. I do get this sense that God of War will come out to PC. I'm actually not so sure about Last of Us. I just feel like that's something about that game that they want to keep on PlayStation. But
Maybe,
God of War
but
just
why?
kind of, I don't know. I can't really fully articulate it, but I just feel like God of War #1 is just such a PC crowd game. Like that to me, just like is just it feels like a PC game to a small degree. Whereas Last of Us feels more like a movie, more of an experience, more suited, I think, to a controlled environment, which is like, consoles are a controlled gaming environment.
I guess, yeah, but it's been so long since its initial release. Other than
I know.
worrying
It's
about
just a
any
sense.
impact that it has to part 3, if there's a part 3,
Yeah.
there's no reason not to do it, especially after so much time has passed. So Horizon Zero Dawn's an interesting one because anecdotally, I've had 3 friends that have said they want the game when it was a PlayStation exclusive, and they wished it was on PC because they didn't play PlayStation.
Yeah.
G-Man was one of them, and
Yeah.
a couple of others. And then it came out, and all 3 of them actually bought the game on PC. It's a shame that it kind of ran a bit crap and whatnot, and had some issues, but supposedly it has. But it's still like they were keen about that. They're not once that they mentioned God of War, interestingly enough. Now, I know that's a super small sample size, so you can't go by that, but it's fascinating that different people obviously want different things. Bloodborne is the #1 thing that that my friends have said, oh man, I wish Bloodborne was on this. I'd play it to death, blah blah blah. But unfortunately, that isn't available. And I just think it comes to a certain point where the game's been out for so long that there's no harm in a way to release it on PC, because it's not, at this point, it's not cutting into your PlayStation sales. No one is now going, man, I really want that Horizon Zero Dawn or that God of War game that was released, 3-4 years ago, and I'm going to buy a PlayStation just for that.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
No, it's so few people now. You'll get way, way, way more sales out of the selling the game itself on PC than you would out of people holding off just to get it on PlayStation after all this time.
I kind of agree with Swinny. I don't think they've put enough games on there to really test that, because I do think that there's some critical level of games where people start to look at it and go, why get a PlayStation? They're all going to come to PC, versus still there's so many exclusives to PS4, PS5 that you can't play anywhere else. Like so much so that you go, if I'm really into gaming and all this kind of stuff, okay, I'm just going to get a PS5. Like it makes sense. There's Last of Us. There's all these other games that, you can't play anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
There's a tipping point. I do think there's a tipping point, and they haven't come anywhere near that tipping point.
But how do you define that tipping point? Because I think the only way to know potentially how this will pan out is obviously, to test the waters and see how it goes. But that's a difficult thing to do when you only release, a small handful of hits that you can test with every couple of years or something. Well, it's not something you can iterate every month and get something new out there.
This is not an every year thing. Like, as part of that interview, he was like, we're moving forward with this. So this is not going to be, they're obviously going to trickle it, but it's not going to be the time frame between Horizon and Days Gone. They're going
I get that, but what I'm saying is it's you've got such a small sample size of exclusive games that you can test this with, that it's hard to test. Usually you need, in order to really get good quantitative and qualitative data, you need to be able to have a whole bunch of different things you can test with.
I don't think it's small group at all, because if you think about it, they've got Last of Us Remastered Collection.
They got so many.
God of War, they've got Spider-Man.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah,
they've got all the
a few that they
Gran Turismo,
Ratchet
could test it with. But what I'm saying is, what you can't test ultimately is, we've now released one game. Oh wow, it's really successful on PC. Has it affected our PlayStation sales? No, it really hasn't. We've made quite a bit of money out of this game. You've released 2 games, you've released 3 games. What if you release 5 games and all of a sudden that equation completely changes, because all of a sudden people do go, well, hang on a minute, it looks like they're releasing all the games on PC. Why am I buying a PlayStation? Which is exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, that's
so it's hard to, but where's that point? It's hard to figure out where that point is. But so
let me answer your question though, because you're asking a question, right? The point has been reached for something like Xbox for me. Like, I won't buy an Xbox because There's enough games on PC and there's so few exclusives that to me it's at a point where I look at it and go, I'm paying in Australia $750 to play, I don't know, 5 exclusive games that are only on Xbox console. Like essentially I'm going, well, each game I'm paying, it's like $100 Australian already to buy the game and then another $100 and something dollars for the console cost, right?
Yeah.
It's not worth it, right? So there is a tipping point. There has to be a tipping point because some people are so bolted onto PC and I think it's the best platform, by the way.
But see, this is the key thing that I'm wondering though. You're one of those people, much like myself, and I guess Swinny as well, that's privileged because we have the options there and we have a PC that is capable of doing that, and a console's almost like a secondary thing. I'd love to see a split, and I'm sure it exists somewhere out there, and I don't know how accurate it is, that shows how many people have only a single console versus multiple consoles versus PC alone versus PC with multiple consoles. You know, like I'd like to see that because I think that governs some of this as well. So we're in a position where it's like, man, I've got so many other consoles that you're right. Why would I also get an Xbox if I can do all this on PC? Sure. But it's funny because you didn't get an Xbox, whereas I'm like, yes, I can do that, but I still went out and got an Xbox.
I haven't even opened it.
I think we need to wrap up the rest of this news.
I agree.
We're talking a long time.
The other major, there's 2 other. Well, sorry, I'll just touch on quickly. Gran Turismo 7, they have confirmed that's been pushed back to 2022.
Boo,
I think
game I'm looking
some of these games you'll find just, you know, they haven't transitioned well to the working at home sort of approach. Talking about working at home, Sony are bringing back their Play at Home initiative, which I think is really awesome. They did it last year with Nathan Drake Collection and Journey, which is really cool. 2 great, games. I mean, Nathan Drake's a collection. They haven't confirmed all the games, but they've already said that in March, so just a couple of days from now, tomorrow, Ratchet and Clank will be free for everyone in the month of March, which beyond PlayStation Plus. Just anyone who has a PlayStation 4 or 5 can get Ratchet and Clank for free. So that's I think awesome. Nice. And they've said that they're going to do that for 4 months. So it'd be really fascinating to see what games they push out on there. And then finally, they have confirmed in this interview, and a lot of people were waiting for this because their hard drives are filling up, that they will update the firmware to allow for you to install an approved SSD into the PS5. They have also noted that they're working on making and unlocking the fan speed of the PS5, which makes me very nervous because initially when they did the tests and, people ripped apart the PlayStation, there wasn't very good cooling on the part of the board where you put the SSD. And now the fact that they've already said they want to increase the fan speed, I almost look at it and go, have they kind of stuffed up the design a little bit where they really needed a better heatsink for the SSD because these SSDs can get insanely hot, like insanely hot. So I think that's a bit of a watch this space, but that will be in the second half of this year where they'll have that firmware update and we'll know which SSDs are approved for installation. So yeah, hell of a lot of Sony news this week. Really cool stuff, really interesting stuff. Kind of surprised they didn't flow this into the state of play. Very surprised.
So much news, in fact, that they crashed Xbox Live for a day. So,
and yeah, we'll get to the other major announcement this week, which was the Pokemon Presents presentation, which is a horrible way to say it. So this mostly, celebrating Pokemon 25, which is the 25th anniversary of when Pokemon Red and Green came out in Japan. So obviously Pokemon, massive franchise. In fact, the biggest from a dollar perspective franchise in the world ever. So bigger than Mickey Mouse, bigger than any sort of other thing you can throw at me. Which to me, I'm kind of still shocked to know that Pokemon is the biggest. And then, yeah, obviously in the last few years when they added Pokemon Go, it sort of just went even harder. So there's a lot of stuff announced. Well, not that much, but, the big 2 things for us, I think, were Pokemon Legends. How do you say it? It's Arceus? Is that how you...
Arceus?
Who knows?
Arceus?
Who knows?
Arceus?
No, I think it's Arceus. I think it's Arceus.
Arceus.
I thought it was pronounced Arceus, but I think they pronounce it Arceus.
Arceus?
And Pokemon Brilliant
Are
Diamond.
Are you serious?
Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which were the much rumored and wanted remakes of Diamond and Pearl, which came out in 2006 on the Nintendo DS. So maybe we'll just start there because I think that'll be a bit quicker. You know, like I'm kind of surprised that they didn't go with the Let's Go style. This is more of a chibi style 3D. And I don't know, honestly, it looks like a PS2 game or PS3 game to me. How did this hit you, Swinny? You're probably more of a Pokemon fan than Mike is. Playing one game.
It's a very interesting bar because I've not played a mainline Pokemon game since Pokemon Red.
Hang on, that's the same as me, to be fair. So,
you know, I can't believe I'm the Pokemon expert.
I think you're the Pokemon expert out of all of us.
I actually played a lot of like Let's Go Eevee because my wife has that. So scary.
Look, I think this is I haven't gone to check Pokemon Reddit or Pokemon Twitter to see what their take is on this, but I think while the Let's Go games was it 2 games or was it a single game?
No, it's like Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee.
Yeah, okay.
Of course it is.
Yeah. No, I just wasn't sure. I think that they deviated a bit, so I think that in terms of the gameplay, so I think people are probably happy these are a bit more faithful.
Yeah, these are a completely faithful remake. So it sounds as if they're not changing almost anything if they don't have to. Whereas, as you're saying, Let's Go, the biggest thing is the battle system are completely different. It's essentially, you ran into a wild Pokemon, you just throw your Pokeball at it and try to catch it. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
Yeah, so I think for people that are wanting to replay these games, it's honestly probably the best way they could have done it. Other than make him look a bit nicer. And that.
Well, and just on that, did you think it looked nice?
Look, it just looked like Pokemon to me. Honestly, I didn't like. I was more focused on. I'm more interested in new Pokemon Snap because I love the original Pokemon Snap. If I'm going to play any Pokemon game, it's probably going to be that one. But,
that was the one thing that stood out. So, as someone who wasn't huge into Pokemon, other than the very originals, when I watched that last 25 years of Pokemon, when they had the original Snap, what was that called? The one on
Pokemon Snap.
Well, the original Pokemon Snap, yeah. To me, that was actually one of the coolest innovations. When you print it out and you put the stickers on the sheet, I'm like, wow, that was so cool. It was such an original, cool concept, and it was very tactile, and it kind of merged real world with the virtual world. I love that.
But even as a game, if you didn't muck around with that, it was just a fun game. Short, but fun.
Clever.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're more likely to get new Pokemon Snap over anything else.
Well, yeah.
Not that you're going to get that.
Honestly, I'll probably be playing something else, but...
Let me guess, an RPG. Although
Pokemon's an RPG.
Yeah, I know,
it is.
But it's not on Xbox, so...
I think we're going to have diverse views on this, I'm guessing. But let's get into the Pokemon Legends game. So this is coming out in early 2022, opened up. This has kind of been rumored, and there's been some rumors out there. It, to me, looked like an open world game set in the early Pokemon Legends or like history, so much before the current, I guess, times of Pokemon. I'm gonna get hate mail for this. It's a Sinnoh region.
I'm not sure, but they say that you're creating the first Pokedex in that region, so it's definitely...
Yeah, I saw that. So, okay, I already, we have a bit of an offline rule of not talking about stuff to get the live reactions, but I actually thought this looked really cool. And I was like, damn, this is the like first Pokemon game I've seen where I'm like, I might actually play this game.
The idea and a lot of it, I love the fact that this game exists, but...
Yeah.
Oh man, it looked like dog shit. Like
really? It looked like trash. It looked like absolute trash. What they showed.
Yeah.
It looks like a late PS2 game.
Sure.
Metal Gear Solid 3 looks better than this game.
It
looked like they flipped a bunch of assets and not just that, the frame rate, and it wasn't just. I did read a few comments about this as well because I thought, is it just me? Is it my monitor or something? The frame rate was shocking.
I'm sorry, if that's the best you can show frame rate wise and performance wise of your game at this point, then don't show it. I'm sorry,
Well, what do you wanted them to do? Do a fake trailer like Cyberpunk style and bait and switch people? I mean, I'm
kind of glad they did
the game
this.
Didn't run well.
Yeah, and then if they improve it, holy moly, everyone's going to love the fact that it improved.
It will get improved. I'm not saying it's not going to, but man, look, I know Sword and Shield had a lot of critics around this as well, but Sword and Shield looks so much better than this bloody game.
No,
way better.
Didn't.
I reckon it did. Absolutely did. And the fact that it's being compared to Zelda Breath of the Wild is such a disservice to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild looks way better if you look at the actual details. I really hope that they fix that stuff up, because I think it's going to be a bit of a if it's going to come out the way it's looking like it's going to be now, I don't think it's going to be a success.
It'll be a success. Every Pokemon.
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it will.
Your dumb takes. That's gone back to S tier. I think this new Pokemon game, which is an open world game, is not going to be a success.
No. If it's in the state,
give me a line.
Okay,
wait,
no, hang on. I got to make sure it doesn't get taken out of context.
And I almost guarantee I'll go over.
If it's going to play and look the way it currently looked in that trailer,
even then,
I think it's going to struggle to be successful.
Nah.
But hang on. Nah. In saying all of that, I think what will make it potentially successful is that it's a different direction. They're actually trying something different. I think I'm not a huge Pokemon fan. Obviously, I know a lot of Pokemon fans are quite diehard and they love that formula that happens in every single game, and I kind of roll my eye and go, don't you guys want something different? But then, I look at a game like Dark Souls and I'm like, nah, don't change it. Keep the formula. Just give me a new Dark Souls game. So I'm no different. I'm absolutely no different. Okay. But I think it's awesome that they're going in a different direction, but they need to improve the graphics, I think, and it's
a trailer. It's early days, man.
Well, I know that. But all I'm saying is if it's in the current state that it was presented to us, and that's what the final product's going to look like, people are going to be pissed. No,
well, people were pissed about Sword and Shield and sold like 12 million copies.
Yeah, but that didn't run that bad. That looked all right. Yeah, it did. Ran all right.
No, that's not true, dude. It had like its frame drops in the open world and everything.
But to this extent?
Yeah, it's just pretty much the same.
Huh. Okay.
Look, the one that this had...
Well, people don't care about that then.
This is like... This had actual animation missing. Like there are some bits where you can see the character animation... They haven't done it yet, so it's just like it just stops or drops in between frames.
Well, I've seen that some games do that. It's a draw distance thing. So one thing that I noticed about this particular game as well is the draw distance is probably what's super shocking. As in the trees that aren't even that far away from your character look ridiculously pixelated. No anti-aliasing, super pixelated, really low resolution.
There's no anti-aliasing in the Switch.
And I know that. I know it's part of the problem as well. But even so, they just look really low resolution. And one thing that I noticed, in some games do that, and I think games like Dark Souls on the Switch might even do this. I know games like, I think The Witcher 3 might do this as well. If characters are a certain point beyond your character in the distance, it drops the frame rate drastically. They basically run like half the frames to be able to for the console to handle that. It looked like it was doing something like that, but way too close to the player, like ridiculously close to the player. Now, I'm sure that's the stuff they'll tweak, but I hope that's not going to remain in the final game, because that was shockingly bad. I don't think I've ever seen any game where it does that at such a short distance.
Oh, okay. I'm going to just say, you guys are being ridiculous saying it's like PS2 graphics.
No, to me it looks PS2.
Yeah,
to me it looks like late PS2. Absolutely does. Look at the grass. Look at the detail of the trees and everything. It's
I'm Googling PS2 games because I'm like, am I wrong about this?
I sent you. Well, did you look at the pics I sent you yesterday?
I will give you that. You could probably mount an argument that it is in between a PS2 and a PS3 game. I'll give you that.
That's why I said late PS2.
No, not even late PS2.
Yeah, late PS2.
I've been looking at
I'm late
games.
PS2.
No way, man.
Absolutely late PS2.
You guys are getting ridiculous now. Like that.
Nah.
You're going too far.
I'm sticking.
I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with it.
Sticking to my guns.
I like the graphics. I think it looks cool. Maybe I'm nuts. Like I think it looks.
No, late PS2.
Game. It's not running at 60 frames per
second.
second.
Look at the foliage, man. Look at the grass.
If this was not a Pokemon game, people would just be like, "This is one of the worst looking games we've ever seen." For the Switch. For the Switch.
Absolutely is. Those are my thoughts as well. It is one of the worst looking games for the Switch. Absolutely.
I don't know.
It looks like it's exactly the thoughts I had. If this was not a Pokemon game, it's some brand new IP or something, people would be laughing about it.
Okay, well, we just have a different view on it. I think it looks cool. I like it. I like the way it looks and shaping up.
That's fine.
I don't want to take away from the fact that I love that this game exists, and I love that it's there.
I just hope they improve it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I think this game is like very divisive. I think like already,
clearly,
people are like, I've heard other people, because I listen to a lot of different people. I've got my own views. When I watched it, I thought, wow, this looks really cool. Like, it's a trailer. It's obviously going to improve and everything like that, like just like what they did with Sword and Shield. But it's fascinating to see. Yeah, people are really skewing on this. Some are like, this is trash. This is like a PS1 game. Or other people are like, wow, it looks beautiful. They must be running it on like the Switch Pro. So it's like, it's fascinating to me how people are landing on this game so differently. Look, it has to be a bit towards something to do with Pokemon in terms of, it's throwing people off one way or the other. I think it looks cool. I'm interested in it. Yeah, I would want to see it closer. And I will say one thing about Pokemon games, that I will not buy this until I get reviews on it and, hear different people's opinion on this game before I buy it.
And I know... Oh, sorry. I know it's also going to look way better if you're playing it on handheld in motion and stuff like that. So I don't want to discredit that. I know
potentially
on the Switch it will look nicer than watching a trailer on YouTube.
Yeah. And look, like I keep going back to it, but they're not trying to bait and switch people. Like they are going, this is what the game currently looks like, and it's running on the Switch. Like they could have easily ran it on a PC and make it 60 frames per second, but they're not going to hit that on the Switch. No way. So, but I like you, hope that it runs at a solid 30. If you can get a lock 30 and they improve some stuff, that'd be cool. I'll be into that. I'll be into that. So
good luck with that, given that it was running at like 5 in some scenes.
So it's interesting for me. I actually thought the Pokemon Presents presentation out of the Direct, the State of Play, and then this one, I thought it was the best one out of the 3 that I watched.
Okay.
I don't think you guys would probably share that view.
No, I think it was good. It was a nice, short, sweet with some big hitters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
and look,
it didn't have fluff. It didn't have fluff.
It didn't. And again, I appreciate that they showed what they have, and I think they probably learned from Cyberpunk. Don't show crap that doesn't exist or that is hyperinflated, which I super appreciate. And I really, really appreciate that they're taking the Pokemon game into a different direction, like a proper, truly open world. And I know a lot of people have been asking about that. Even I myself, as someone who used to enjoy the Pokemon games back in the day, but then I felt like everything was just the same rehash of it, so I stopped playing them. Always wanted an open world Pokemon game, but from what I've seen so far, unfortunately, this is not it.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, let's get into a final bit of news and power through it, because I'm really keen to get into Half Life Alyx and Portal 2. So our next piece of news, and this is right into my hitting zone, is around Analogue Pocket. And just Analogue in general. So Analogue are a pretty cryptic company. I really like them. I love their products. I've got multiple products from them. I think they always make very high quality products. They're very much like the hi-fi for vintage gaming. And they had a great support post where they actually went through, like some of their approaches to sales, because they copped a lot of slack last year. And honestly, I think kind of unfairly to a large degree. They've always been very clear that they're very small and they're making things in small batches. And I think the success of the Pocket kind of caught them a little bit off guard, and probably at a point in time where they couldn't really change their plans. Like, I think people don't realize if you make a physical device, these days you're not making it in your home country. You're going to make it in China, India, Vietnam, something like that. If you're an American-based company, that means you're flying over there, you're getting visas, you're doing stuff, you're working with the factory owners, different language, all these kind of things. It delays things. That's the way it is these days. But you get scale, and it's cheaper, and you kind of have to do it like that if you're going to hit price points they're trying to hit. And that means they would have said, okay, we're going to make 20,000 units or whatever it is. And maybe 100,000 units wanted to be sold, right? So it's a mismatch. But at the point where they kind of realized the popularity, I don't think they could have done anything about it. They did post, and I think it's so good that they are putting a whole bunch of initiatives together to help prevent things like bots. So they are genuinely doing more to prevent bots and, people having those type of behaviors than Microsoft and Sony are doing on the sales of PS5 and Xbox Series X. So they're going to do bot detection. So when they do release products going forward, you do need to do like a capture and all these kind of things. And there's lots of simple things you can do to limit the amount of bot usage that has happened in the past for these limited products. And the other thing I was really happy about is they were much clearer, even though everything they said was very clear to me from the start. But I think now they're a lot clearer about, what limited means versus just what their regular products mean. So
okay.
I think Swinny's going to be really happy about this, that they also gave clarity on some of the products that do exist and what's going to happen. So currently, all of their products are out of sale right now. Like everything's sold out.
Wow.
They have been clear that the Super NT is not a limited product. They're going to keep on trying to make it.
Yes.
And the next batch of orders are going to be in March, April timeline.
Ooh, can you keep us informed?
Yeah, I have like a little bot that monitors their site, so hopefully it doesn't get detected.
And it is not used for purchasing. Just
no, I don't scalp it. I just don't want to miss out.
Hello.
Yeah, I use bots just so I can buy my own individual copy. But that's how crazy they are. So yeah, Swinny, you're going to be happy about that.
It's a getaway.
Super NT. So again, Super NT is the Super Nintendo FPGA clone. The Mega SG and the DAC are going to be for sale soon after the Super NT. So I'd probably say, that June, July kind of period. And then the Analogue Pocket as well will go on sale again multiple times this year. They haven't been clear yet when, but I would say it's probably mid-year that it will come up on sale again. And I think that's why they're putting a lot of these things in place, given that the Analogue Pocket sold out in about 8 minutes. And
that's nuts.
Really, people even who were on the site couldn't buy it. Like, absolutely couldn't buy it. And, I purchased one. I purchased two, but one for me and one for my wife, and the link cable. But like even with me, I get it. It's crazy. Like they're going on sale now for like $1,000. It's insane. Like it's so hard to get your hands on these things.
By the way, Mike, have you seen what these things look like? The Analogue Pocket?
I have, yeah. I actually at one point I wanted one as well, yeah.
I wasn't sure because I thought you'd really appreciate the design and what they do.
No, absolutely would, yeah. I think they're amazing, and I think if they do come on sale again, please let me know if you guys see it, and I think I will definitely grab one.
The biggest issue, and they didn't address this and it annoys me, is the shipping to Australia is just ridiculous. Someone actually asked in the comments how much the shipping was when I bought it. It was $90 to ship to Australia.
Wow. Look, you know what? I'm not surprised. I've bought a whole lot of stuff, and shipping's insane from the US for small.
But most things are like if they do it through Amazon and stuff like that, it's way cheaper. But I even thought, okay, maybe if I buy multiple and then you guys want to buy it and stuff, it's going to be cheaper. Nah, it doesn't work like that. It's crazy.
Really?
They actually start to increase, so it's like goes from like 90 to 200.
What?
Yeah, it's like discourages you from doing that.
I think it's because they probably use some sort of API that goes to whatever,
and it's not
DHL or whatever, and it's not smart at all.
It
just goes, this is the weight, this is the size, this is to Australia as a general. It's $90. It's ridiculous.
So I'm hyped about this. I'll let you guys know when they go up on sale.
Use it.
I am very much looking into getting a Mister. So it's interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with my Super NT. I know that you want one, Swinny, but they're going to go on sale soon. And then the one thing that I'd speculate about is, because later in the year in October, it's Analog Day, where every year they've been announcing products on that day. I think it's October 16th, but don't quote me on that. That'd be really scary if that's actually the right day.
All right, I've got it. Stop me if I've made this joke before. Analog Virtual Boy.
You haven't made that joke before. I do think that they'll do a plastic version of the NES. So they've had the NT Mini, but that's a much more premium product. That was made of aluminium or aluminum, as they say in the States, and a very high, very, very high end product. Not like their Super NT or Mega SG. I think they'll probably do an NES version of that to complement the suite of systems that they have available. So, really, really cool. I love Analog. I think they're really cool. Come at me if you want. That's fine. I'll take it on. All right, let's keep this moving. So, Bargain Bin, my favorite segment of every week. Epic Game Store Sunless Sea is available for free. Go and get it. Nothing really to call out on the Switch, just because a lot of the sales are expiring as we're publishing this episode, but PlayStation's a big one. So the stay-at-home initiative for March. So by the time you're watching this, you should be able to get Ratchet and Clank for free, regardless of if you have PS Plus or not. If you do have PS Plus, you can get Final Fantasy VII Remake for free. Now, this version is the PS4 version. It will not upgrade to the PS5 version. You will need to purchase that separately. So that does mean that you will be capped at 30, essentially.
I think 3 guys just talked about that on a podcast not that long ago.
Yeah, true. Remnant from the Ashes. I don't know how to say this. Maquette?
Remnant from the Ashes, by the way, please get it Fantastic
I know
game.
that's a good game, but I don't know how to say the next one.
Maquette,
How do you say that?
probably.
Maquette.
No, but there's no R, maquette.
No, maquette.
Okay, and then
I'm not saying
Farpoint
an
VR.
R.
And then Xbox. I always hand over to the Xbox shield, Swinny.
Yeah, so they announced games with gold, but I'm not going to cover it, honestly.
Because they're crap.
It's just like, look, not every game is crap, but like when you take it as a package, honestly, like I don't even want to give them the time of day. But there was an announcement that Star Wars Squadrons is joining EA Play and Game Pass in March.
Ooh, awesome.
Also, just a quick PSA that Defiance 2050, which was the original Defiance was an Xbox 360 PS3 game, and then they re-released it. It's like an MMO. I've never played it, but they're shutting the servers down on the 29th of April.
Bummer.
And just with Xbox Gold, I mean, PS Plus has been smashing Xbox with Gold out of the water recently. Like, it's been embarrassing. Like, they've had Control Ultimate Edition on PS Plus and then just trash on Xbox.
Why
games
get
with Gold.
Final Fantasy VII Remake when you can get Vicious Attack Llama Apocalypse?
Oh, man. I know what I'd be getting.
And I'm just going to do
It would actually be Vicious Attack Llama because I already have Final Fantasy VII, but, you know.
But I'm just going to do my weekly complaint about EA Play and Game Pass on PC. It's still not available. They said it was going to be available in December last year. It's annoying. I'm annoyed. I want to play Jedi Fallen Order. And now Squadrons is on there as well. I definitely want to play Squadrons. So
Definitely
Fix
grab
it, EA.
Jedi Fallen
Fix
Order.
it.
No, you know what? You should, I reckon, well, not that it makes a difference. I reckon you should buy Jedi Fallen Order to send a clear message to EA that we want more single-player games. By the way, I think they already got that message.
I'm only one
We
person.
spoke about it just
Yeah,
before,
exactly.
but
All right, let's get into our special feature this week. Half Life Alyx. And some VR impressions from me, I guess, because playing more VR stuff for the first time. But yeah, Half Life Alyx. So, placed between the events of the groundbreaking games Half Life and Half Life 2. Does Half Life Alyx live up to the series' incredibly lofty reputation? Released last year in 2020 after 4 years of development. Very small team for a AAA game, relatively 80 people. As Valve has always had very small teams. And some of the folks from Firewatch, after they bought that studio, developed this game.
Is it Campo Santo?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
But they're just like Valve now.
Yeah.
And really, like the sort of ambition of Half-Life Alyx is to be a VR game, first-person shooter that takes full advantage and is very native VR. So how do you have experiences in VR that can't be replicated via any other games? And I mean, first off the bat, and then I'll hand over to you, Mike, like this game, I think it's nuts when I see now playing the game, when people are trying to mod it so they can play it without VR. It's, to me, completely missing the point of the game.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to cover this, even though I probably won't I don't think we'll do a review on it down the track, but just like impressions and, you know, I don't think the game's going to drop in quality or anything like that. I know some of the puzzles get frustrating for people, but it really triggered me when you actually said something in our chat, like our offline chat, Swinny, around that feeling you had when you played Ocarina of Time for the first time and games like that. And for me, Super Mario Bros. 3, Doom, Ocarina of Time, and maybe this game. They're like the four games for me.
Yeah,
like this game, when I played this game and started like getting into it, and I've played maybe a quarter of the game, this game was like, I had a smile on my face, man. I was like, holy shit, this game is like incredible. It's not perfect, but I'd give it a 10 out of 10 straight away.
Yeah, same.
It's just so phenomenal, man. Like it's, you have to experience this game. Like this is just purely a game that you know, if you're a gamer and you play games, you have to play this game at some stage. It's insane what they've done with this. It's a landmark game. And to me, it really actually does put the Game Awards in a massively negative light to me. How this game, out of the 6 games, could not be considered Game of the Year is insane. It doesn't make any sense. I understand it if you're a small outlet, you don't have VR, you're blah, blah, blah. But if you're trying to represent the games industry, it's just insane that this game is not one of the 6. Like, you can never mount an argument in my mind that this game is less worthy than Doom Eternal. Just picking a game, but
No, totally not. I think
it's
Reach is the only thing I can think of why it wouldn't, because
But that
not everyone
shouldn't be
has a
the way.
VR
That
headset.
shouldn't be
But
the
I
way.
agree, it shouldn't be the way. To me, this was the most revolutionary game experience I've played in a long time.
Yeah.
I think the way you equated it to what it felt like the first time I played Doom is exactly this. It's a whole new different thing. I actually honestly don't even have words to
Yeah.
describe how amazing that experience was. The only difference is I didn't have a smile on my face playing it because I was too freaking scared. It was the opposite of a smile. No, just kidding. I actually did have a smile on my face as well. It's mind blowing, and it's the first VR experience I've had that didn't actually feel anywhere near like a tech demo. It actually felt like a proper game, a proper title that to me feels like it's the ushering in of a whole new era of gaming. It's the gateway, the proper first gateway into a whole new VR experience that I think we'll get as gamers. It's incredible. And I don't know how you want to go about this, but so many elements about it are just so cool. So everything from the tactile feel of what you do. So, we've seen this before. I think a lot of people have seen it, even if they haven't played the game. At the very, very start of the game, you can pick up a marker and you can draw on.
Yeah, I did that.
I did that for ages. I spent, like probably 20 minutes plus just sitting there doodling, rubbing it off. And just that experience was amazing. And then little things like I picked up a box of matches with my left hand and I had my gun in my right hand and I balanced the box of matches on the gun and it stayed there until I tipped it over. Yeah. And then I tried the same thing. I picked it up and I flung it up in the air and the box of matches went flying into the air and then dropped to the ground. That is insane. The fact that you can do that is something you cannot experience with almost any other game. It just blew me away. And what else blew me away is the little details. I picked up a graphics card, and it's really cool because obviously the whole sort of world in Half-Life is set in what I would say is like a 2000s era Eastern Europe kind of thing. So everything's stuck in that time where you have the old CRT monitors, but with cool new technology intertwined. And I remember I picked up a graphics card and I was just moving it around in my hand. And the way it reflected light of the metal in the room that I was in looked photorealistic. It was the first time when I went...
graphics card, or do you mean like a disc?
No, it was an actual graphics card. So it was like I found a box in the game. I found a box of just graphics cards, and I picked one. It had the VGA output on it in blue, or the equivalent of a VGA. I think it actually kind of was a VGA. And just the way the metal and the plastic surfaces, and that happened again when I picked up a clipboard and I was I was next to a monitor, and it would reflect the materials so accurately. And it had a bit of sticky tape and a couple of parts on the back of the clipboard. And just the way the materials reflected was insane. I mean, it's not, super photorealistic as the whole game, but little elements like that were just the immersion in this game is second to none. Everyone, if you can get your hands on a VR headset, if you can borrow it from someone, you need to experience this. It's insane.
And we spoke about it earlier, so with PSVR2, and I'm really excited about PSVR2. And I hope and pray, and Valve has done it in the past. The problem is they don't have any economic incentive to do it, but I really hope and pray that they re-release this game on PS, like PlayStation, as part of like a launch for PSVR 2. Because this game, I just fear that it's just not going to be played by people. And I feel like this game is going to go down as just like an absolute cult classic.
Oh, yeah.
That not necessarily was reviewed badly, but it's just an availability thing.
If I was Sony and I'm like, planning out the launch of the next PSVR, like that is like my number one priority.
Oh, honestly. Same.
Yep.
Like having known, because I think they paid $2 to $3 million to get Resident Evil 7 to be an exclusive. I honestly think this game has such an impact that it would probably economically make sense for them to go, Valve, here's $10 million to make this a console exclusive for PSVR. Because I think this game, if it went on something like PSVR, which is the market leader for VR, people hate hearing that, but it's true. And you can't, argue with facts with that. It would change people's mind a bit, but I think this is where we differ, Mike. I still view, and people are going to come at me, whatever. I feel VR is a gimmick. VR is, to me, more gimmicky than motion controls is.
Okay.
Like for me, VR is a pain in the ass to set up. It's not seamless. Even with the Quest, you're like drawing out, where your play area is. There's just
We'll talk
so
about that in a
many
second.
things
There's
to
a lot
do.
of things to do.
There's funny things that break immersion. So one thing that happened, and I was saying that yesterday I got to play this for ages, that my dogs went nuts, and I think someone was at the door, or maybe someone's trying to break into my house, and I was kind of like laughing to think that, imagine if you're like invading my house to rob it, and then you open the door and there's some dude like with a headset on. And I was just like, I was thinking it'd be so funny if I got like bashed or got into a fight.
Hilarious.
And I'm in the VR unit.
Man,
like,
I had the same problem. I was sitting there, totally immersed in the game, and all of a sudden my girlfriend walks past and just pulls my pants down, underwear included. She just left me like that.
Oh my god, you've met someone who has your exact same sense of humor.
I did. I'm very lucky.
But yeah, like, look, and I do not want that to take away from this. The way I would equate it is, I really feel like, some of the great, like Daytona USA in the arcades. I love that game so much. It's very popular in Australia, more so than anywhere else in the world. Not sure why, but like that is a game you have to play at the arcade. You have to have the feel of the arcade. You have to have people watching you, putting pressure on you from seeing you actually, playing the game. And then, the really great setups that you've had in Australia, sometimes you have like 8, cars that are all linked together. Like that is something you just can't replicate like at home. And I look at it kind of like this, where VR is, to me, very gimmicky.
But
I wouldn't play it all the time, but it's such an experience. And I don't say this lightly. For me, I can't even think of a year. I'd really struggle, actually. Like if this was game of some other year, 2011, if this game was in 2011, I would say this game of the year.
Oh, yeah. Same.
Right?
Yeah.
And if this came out in the same year as Breath of the Wild, I'd say this is game of the year.
Yep.
And that's where, for me, and I, just context for people who don't know, like I love Breath of the Wild, collected all the Korok seeds, which is nuts. Like I love that game with such a passion. And this game is just like, wow, it blew me away so much. Like it was like genuinely a new experience with gaming.
But it's a whole new experience.
But what about Breath of the Wild's VR features?
I don't know if it'd be the same. I think a first person is what makes this what it is. It's the immersion in it.
If you don't know, Breath of the Wild got VR Labo mode.
Yeah, you can play. You can
I
play
did
all
not
of
know
Breath
that.
of the Wild
Wow,
in
that's
VR.
pretty cool.
You can
Okay.
actually play the whole game in VR.
Can you play the whole thing?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Can I just
If you
quickly?
want to get so sick, because that's the bit that I want to touch on just quickly, Mike. That
Yep.
I had so much nausea because I did play it for like an hour or two. I had so much nausea after this.
Wow.
I didn't like throw up, or I wasn't like dizzy or anything, but I just felt off for all of yesterday. Like after playing this,
fascinating. Huh.
And I've played VR a bit recently.
And you don't have because just to quickly touch on that, I have full controls unlocked. So I use the left stick to move around, and I have the right stick to kind of move my body, so to speak, which I think is even worse when it comes to.
It is. That's what they say.
But I had no problems with it. I actually had. Do you stand up, or were you sitting down?
No, I stand up.
Yeah,
So
same. I stood up. Like if you sit down, then it makes it way worse, I think.
Yeah.
But standing up, I had no problems with that. There were a couple of small instances where I'm like, whoa, that's a bit trippy.
But how long are you playing it for?
Look, I only probably play about 30 to 45 minutes.
That's what I did the first time. So I played it for 30 minutes the first time, and I never feel sick when I'm playing the games. And afterwards, it was like 5 minutes after playing it for 30 minutes. 5 minutes, I felt a bit off. It was like almost like, whoa, I'm getting back into the real world. And I was fine. But then yesterday, I think it's because I played it just way too long. Like it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. And I was like, whoa, I feel like off. Like not quite like a hangover or something like that. Just, it just, when you're not right. And I just was like, whoa, I don't feel right now. Like I feel very funny.
Integot, I've got a very important question.
Yes.
That's always going to be super important when I say that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
How does this experience and Half Life Alyx compare to the VR machines at Fun City in Sunshine?
Obviously, nothing
I keep
compared
thinking
to
about that. That's so funny you said that. Like I was thinking about that when I was playing VR and just thinking about VR in general.
The investment that poor place put into these old 90s VR machines that just sat there and no one used them, and you just look at it as we're playing pool and just thinking, man, they lost
Oh, they would have lost
thousands and
such
thousands
a
of
dumb idea.
dollars on
Yeah,
this.
it was not the right time to do
That's
it.
when people were suffering. So yeah, there's this. It's like a whole entertainment center, right? Because there's like lots of different things there, go karting and a bar and all that kind of stuff. But Swinny and
Pool,
I would play
everything.
pool religiously, like billiards or whatever you call it, other places in the world. But we also would play like Led Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven and pay for it to go on loop like 20 times or 15 times. And then like 3 or 4 times in, people were starting to lose it. Like, what the F? Like, someone's playing this song again. What the fuck? Who did this? And we're like trying to like keep it straight because we're like, holy shit, we're going to get bashed or something. Because there's a lot of interesting characters where we grew up. But a huge part of the floor space was taken up by this VR game that I think I saw one person play ever. How many times did you see people play it, Swinny? I saw it once.
I think I saw it once, but yeah,
that
like
must have been with you,
because
yeah.
it had. I think it had 2 units, or was it 1?
Yeah, it's 2 units.
2 units, but in this
Huge amount of
massive,
space.
like
Yeah.
separate room with a glass.
And so expensive,
thing.
right?
Oh my god!
It was like, I don't know, $25 or something like that. It was just crazy.
Wow.
And the graphics were horrendous. It
By
was like,
today's standards.
even for those standards. No, even back then. It was like horrible.
Yeah, they
Right?
were
like,
they were like worse than N64 graphics.
yeah, way worse.
Wow.
It was crazy.
So this brings me to a point I wanted to make this entire time. So
Yeah.
you say that it's a gimmick. I say you're saying the equivalent of people back in the day saying Pong is a gimmick. What we're experiencing right now, especially with games like Half Life Alyx, is the absolute start of the whole VR revolution.
Okay,
It's going to become insane one day.
Let me articulate it, right? VR in its current format, which is putting a display in front of my eyes, is a gimmick. And it's never going to be anything bigger, right? I'll go on the record. I'm more than happy
Okay,
to
go
say
on the
that.
record. Go on the record. You sound exactly like the people that probably dissed Pong back in the day.
Sure, but I mean, if you think about the form of Pong, having a controller where you control something on a screen, that became successful in that format, right?
What, you're saying that
VR
VR won't become
will not-
successful in the format of having a
Correct.
headset on your head?
Now,
Okay.
in the idea that they are able to somehow hack or tap into your visual cortex, so then it's just like a little diode or something that you stick to the side of your head, and the visual acuity is like similar to the real world, right? If they did something like that, I 100% think that people would get addicted to it and like would disappear from the real world.
Okay. I'm keen to see what happens in 10 years.
The
And
form, well,
the world proves you wrong.
Okay, in just context, we've known each other for like 20 something years.
Yep.
Every 5 years, you're like, VR is
And very
going to be the biggest
intimately.
biggest thing in 5 years' time. And every 5 years, you're like, oh, give it another 10 years. It keeps on expanding the time for when it's going to take
Yeah,
off.
I don't remember what my prediction was last time and when it was.
It was like 10 years ago. You said if 5 years
Yeah,
time,
look,
it's going
I'm
to be
not.
massive.
I couldn't predict certain things that would hold it back, like COVID,
Sure.
as an example. I use that as an
COVID.
excuse.
Just-
but I do.
Mike is every game developer ever.
But I do agree with you. I think there are, again, certain roadblocks that make it much less accessible than picking up a controller and just using a simple controller. But at the same time, I think it's still in its infancy. It still has a ton of improvements, even in the way it's structured and presented at the moment, that yes are a barrier. And I'm talking about the wires, I'm talking about the resolution, I'm talking about a whole bunch of things that once that gets sorted out, everything becomes wireless. It's just you plump it on your head. It's all self-contained. You don't even need to put a cable or install something on your PC or go through that headache, which I spent an hour trying to get it just set up.
My God,
Once
don't
you
even
resolve
start about
all of
That's
that,
pain in the ass.
which you will resolve all of that,
Sure.
I think it's going to be the same as if you look at the evolution of a mobile phone. When,
No, don't say that because the mobile
I think
phone
it
may
is.
be the most popular product of all time. That's getting silly.
No, it's getting
Gaming is still
sorry. I'm not
relatively
saying
niche.
no. Hang on. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's going to be as popular as a mobile phone. I'm saying it's going to be the same way a device like the mobile phone evolved from this archaic 3 colors monochrome with buttons and a tiny little screen that size to holy moly, I can play the latest AAA titles on it kind of device.
Yeah.
I think it's the same as VR. What we're seeing now is the infancy. It's it's still super early on in the life of VR that I think there's massive room for improvements and innovation in that space, and I think it will happen.
Well, I agree with you there. I think you're at stage 0 with VR, right?
Well,
It's not even-
stage one, let's say,
it's not even
because
stage 1.
well, I think it's stage one. I think
Okay,
it's
well,
like
whatever.
I think it's the equivalent. Honestly, I think it's the equivalent of the gaming industry's NES era, probably.
Yeah.
To me,
my perspective-
PSVR. The fact that exists, then we're at stage 1 because it's
Sure.
at
No,
least
like-
reached that level.
Look,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's NES era for me.
I'm just being cute with saying stage 0. Look, like for me, like I said, in its current format, which is a display in front of my eyes, it will never take off. It will never become anything other than a tiny little niche like it is right now, which is, not even 5% of gamers use VR consistently and play VR, right? I love that Valve has made this game. So just getting back to Alyx, like
Yeah.
with that context, I'm not a big lover of VR. Like I think it's amazing tech, but 95% of the people that I know that love VR don't play VR. You included, Mike, right? So it's like
Because of the barriers,
but that's
is what I
always going to be
said.
the barriers with the
Well,
form.
that's what I mean. I don't think it necessarily is. If the wires are gone, if the headset is
But you have that with the
standalone,
Quest. You have that with the Quest.
yeah, but Alyx doesn't exist on the Quest. A lot of the games on
you
the
can
Quest,
connect to the Quest wirelessly.
they do, but they haven't ironed out all the issues. You
Oh,
need
no,
really
if
good
you-
Wi-Fi. There's some. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
I've
If you
read
get-
about. I was gonna do it, and then I looked it up. I read about it, and I'm like, well, I don't really have the right environment to do it properly. So I'm like, forget about it. Try it again in 5 years. I just think there's a lot of barriers that are preventing people from being able to do that. Now, does that mean that I will, exclusively go into VR? Or no, it absolutely doesn't. But I think once the catalog of games increases and once they're available either wirelessly or without having to download separately with my PC, like everything's integrated in the headset and it's powerful enough to, power games like Alyx in the headset itself, then I think it's going to start becoming, at least for me, a bit of okay, well, I think I will dedicate a lot more percentage of my time to gaming in VR games than I would to PC. And yeah, at the moment, absolutely. It's like 95-5 maybe. But I could see myself, 5 years down the track, if some of those things have improved, or it's, almost 50-50.
Yeah. Well, I'm keen to move away from just the VR chat in general. Like, just like final thoughts on Alyx. Like I'll go first and then hand over to you, but
Yeah.
And Swinny, like you're like the guinea pig because you haven't played much VR, or definitely not Alyx.
I've never used VR in my life.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Like
I want to try. It's not
immersion isn't even the right word, right? Because like people talk about immersive gameplay, immersive games, Last of Us, stuff like that. I feel like you can't even use that word compared to using it in the context of a game like Half Life Alyx. Like for me, the level of feeling of like, and the amount of aha moments I had where I was like, wait a second, like I got to treat like this is like the real world. Like I got to grab this crate and move it in front of the window and do this stuff. And I don't want to give spoilers, but like stuff where I'm like, fuck, I've got to actually like treat this like I'm playing in the real world, like real life. And it's like, solving it through real means rather than like, oh, this is a game. Like it actually started to feel like less of a game than an experience and something different, right? Like, and I think that's the key point I just want to land. Like, you have to play this game. Like, if you're a gamer and you're into games, just try to find a way. Like, I would love if, VR units are more freely accessible from like a rental point of view. Like, it would have been awesome back in the 90s. I mean, pretty nasty in some ways, but, it's just such a cool game. It's so worthwhile playing. I really hope it comes to PSVR2. I think that would be an amazing launch for PSVR2 if they had Half Life Alyx as a bundle. Like I must admit, I'll probably just grab it again.
Yeah, I would. I absolutely would too. Yeah.
For me, like I'm very tight when it comes to games and buying games and sales and all that kind of stuff. And I think I bought this even though it was on sale for like, I don't know, 60, 70 Australian dollars. It is like worth every dollar from an experience point of view. It is so cool. It's just amazing. So yeah, Mike, like final thoughts on Half-Life Alyx?
Absolutely echoes those thoughts. Looking back at my life, and that's the interesting thing about human psychology.
Wow, that broadened out.
Well, no, it does.
Thoughts.
It did
Well,
actually. My
life.
final thoughts. Let me tell you about the existential crisis
tell him
I'm
to shut
currently
up.
going through. So if you look at the interesting thing about human psychology is that you can only experience a certain thing once. You only have one chance at experiencing a certain thing and seeing it that way, because every single other experience beyond that point with that thing is not going to be the same. And I think that if I look back at Doom, when I first experienced Doom, it was like that. It's like, whoa, this is different. It's a whole new different experience that I remember having as a kid. If I look back at, the first time I had sex, totally different experience. Like, you can't, it was new. And after that, it's just an iteration of it, but it's not the same thing. And I think Alyx was the same to me. So yes, maybe I am equating Alyx to the first time I had sex. It's a whole new experience that I did not feel with any other game in recent memory. And if you can get your hands on a VR headset, if you can borrow one from a friend, I borrowed mine currently. You were borrowing yours. Totally worth it. When I get my own one, hopefully it'll arrive soon. You can borrow mine as well, Swinny. You have to experience this thing.
You heard it here first. Half Life Alyx better than sex.
Yes.
It's dead serious question, Mike. Did you think playing Half Life Alyx was better than the first time you lost your virginity? Well, not like when you lost your virginity.
Look, without getting into too many details, it wasn't the
just yes or no. Yes or no.
Yes, it was better because it wasn't the best experience.
This explains the pants down VR now.
Well, I can see the link to that as well.
Yeah, that was a full immersive
Maybe
experience.
that was a very immersive experience. I'm like, wow, that head crab is really doing its thing.
Man.
All jokes aside, it is absolutely a must thing to experience.
It's a masterpiece.
You can somehow get your hands on it.
It's a masterpiece.
It is.
It's I really like the Criterion collection. So that's a collection of very remarkable movies. It doesn't always have to be the greatest movies, but just meaningful movies, not trash. And I think if they started a Criterion collection for games, this game could definitely be the first one. Like, that's kind of where I rate it. It's just such a landmark masterpiece game, 10 out of 10. It's really, hey, put this in the 10 out of 10 category and use it as a definition of what that should mean.
Yes.
As a 10 out of 10. So.
And a lot of people might hate me when I say this, but to me, personally, this is Half-Life 3.
I'm on the same track as you, dude. Like, if they called it Half-Life 3, I know that it doesn't make sense from a timing.
Well, that's why people want Half-Life 3.
Half-Life 0.5.
But if this was Half-Life 3 and it was like a continuation, and I feel like they kind of chickened out on doing that. But if they did, I would have said that's perfect. Like, and people would have hated it, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. It's amazing. It's such an amazing game.
Yeah, it's not a side thing. It's not like a DLC. It's not a little mini game that was an offshoot on a mobile phone or something to add to the story. It's its own proper standalone Half-Life game that is mind-blowing.
Yeah, and then going back to the opener and the question, like, does it live up to the legacy of the series? In our new editorial policies, fuck yeah, it does. It does live up to it. And it's like just as good as those games. All right, we need to keep it onto the Valve fanboy podcast, as we're going to also cover Portal 2. So Portal 2, this is more like a reflection, and for me, I think I very much did not argue well of why Portal 2 should have been in the top 6 Game of Some Other Year 2011. I think I should have attached the argument around we had too many RPGs in the top 6 and tried to wedge this one in. This game, as I said, was released in 2011. We wanted to just have some time, given that it won't be covered in the top 6 and won't be a part of the chance of being our official Game of Some Other Year 2011. It came out in April 2011 on the PC, and then it also came out on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Amazingly, is one of the, like, if you go backwards in terms of Valve games that have been released, it's the second or third last release from Valve, like, which is kind of nuts given it's 2011. And yeah, this game, I only actually played it recently and absolutely adore this game and love this game, and feel like personally everything that Portal did, it exceeds it and does it differently and does it better in like a much bigger way. And then playing even, maybe half of the co-op campaign, it's just incredible, like, what they've pulled together for this game. And it's just so clever, and it's just such a must-play game for me. Swinny, like we haven't heard from you for a while. Portal 2, like what are your thoughts?
So,
what's the reflection that you have? on it?
First of all, I just want to say this. You might as well call this segment the Integot Sore Loser segment. You know,
What happened?
but no, in saying that it's like we're like planning out the weeks that we're going to talk about the nominees for games
yes.
of the year. He's like, I just want to talk about Portal 2. I just want to so like this is essentially you could call this the runner-up. Or I guess special consideration
Game 7,
of
Game
some
7,
other
yeah.
year. So, look, Portal 2 is an amazing game. I don't think I need to make that argument. As for why it didn't make the list, well, we've got a whole segment about that, so go and check that out. It's
and I don't want to jump in, but it's just that I probably had this ranked as number 2 for me.
Wow.
So like that's kind of where I was a bit pissed off. I was like, oh my god, this is like my maybe number 1, but definitely number 2 game, and then it's not even in the list.
Yeah, look, Portal 2 is one of the best puzzle games ever made, but it's so much more than a puzzle game. What they did with the story in the single player, like the first Portal had a great little self-contained story, obviously, you know, some great humor, great writing, voice acting, but they really, really took that Aperture Laboratories, or whatever you say, Aperture Science, with the whole Cave Johnson backstory.
Yeah.
What they do, and we're not going to spoil it, but what they do with the characters, you know, the big new character and central character is Wheatley, and they voiced by the amazing Stephen Merchant.
He was so good.
He's
in it.
so good in it. And it's like from a stereo. So yeah, they've taken what could have just been an easy win in terms of let's just make more Portal, and they crafted this fantastic narrative about it. But looking into the history of Portal 2, I don't know if everyone knows this, but apparently they were actually, when they were planning out Portal 2, they were actually not going to use portals in it. So they were actually working on an entirely new gameplay mechanic. And this is all in Wikipedia. Like, I'm not going to say that.
What's the mechanic?
Well, they never fully divulged it because they're hoping to use it in the future. But apparently it revolves around taking photos of objects and then manipulating those and then like replacing them, and then you can like. And there's a whole. It came from this other game that's called. I'm just looking it up now. A game called Exposure, and it's kind of similar to Nabacular Drop, which inspired Portal. Sorry, it's a tag. The power plant, no, paint. Sorry. No. Sorry, I'm getting confused. We'll get to the paint stuff in a second. There's so many games here that I'm looking at, but yeah. So that whole different mechanic. But then apparently during testing, they're like, okay. People are like, well, where's the portals? And look, if you're
going to call it Portal 2.
Well, yeah, and I'm so glad they did, because what they did is, you know, not only took the amazing framework that Portal 1 had done, they created a fantastic co-op mechanic around it by giving both players a set of portals. But then they just went ham on it, and they just elaborated so much, and it's almost genius design. At points.
It absolutely is genius design, yeah.
And can I just say, because you're just touching on Valve, Swinny, for me, I feel, because I'm definitely a Nintendo fanboy on the podcast and shill, but I feel like Valve is like the Nintendo for PC. Like they're just so ingenious how they come up with new mechanics, new gameplay options, new ways of playing, and then everyone just follows them and copies them.
Yeah, and I mentioned before, I was going to say that tag, Power of Paint. So my favorite thing about Portal 2 are those gels that they start throwing in. So the repulsion,
I love that.
The repulsion gel, the propulsion, and that originated in that game, Tag, the Power of Paint. So they apparently hired those creators to then introduce and then develop it within Portal 2. And I just love the idea. You walk into a room and you see all this gel flying around, and you've got to manipulate it so you can make a surface that you can create portals on, but then you've got to use it to launch yourself. It's just wild. And I haven't played through the single player in a while. And look, I will admit, if I had played through the single player campaign again leading up to when we did our discussions, it would have been a much harder decision for me to make to say that Portal 2 didn't. Because
he's just teasing me. He's just teasing me now.
I'm being honest.
Yeah, but if you played any of the other games, you could probably end up with that same dilemma as well, right?
It's just 2011. There's a reason why we chose 2011, and
to make it hard.
But as I guess Integot, as a first-time player of Portal 2, I guess how did you find it?
Yeah, no, like amazing. So I played Portal 1 basically when it came out, and always heard good things about Portal 2. Like, you know, the game got Game of the Year by a lot of outlets. And in a very competitive year, mind you know, with Dark Souls and Minecraft and a whole host of other games, Batman, like
Skyrim.
Arkham. Yeah, exactly. Like, it was insane that year. And you know, just quickly, I think that year, if you're looking at the 6th, 7th, 8th games, it's definitely going to be the best year of gaming. Now, in terms of like top games, blah, 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 maybe people would, you know, people have their favorite games, so maybe it's not the best year. But from a 6th, 7th, 8th game, the fact that we struggled so much and that this game wasn't in the top 6 just goes to show how good that year was. Yeah, for me, I normally try to avoid anything spoilery, so I didn't know anything about... I didn't even know Stephen Merchant was in the game. So as soon as it opened up, and I'm very familiar, I pretty much watched all of his work, like in terms of like... What was this TV show, Hello Ladies, I think it was called?
Well, but The Office, you know?
The Office,
like,
yeah.
wow.
I'm very... You know, like the Ricky Gervais podcast, like I'm very, very familiar with his work and really like his sense of humor and comedy, so... It was very delightful to like start the game and bang, he's like one of the main characters in the whole game. And just the voice acting, like I think this is the thing about the game, like I can't even fault anything about the game. Like the acting, the pacing, the puzzles, it just flows. Like I think I beat it in like 6.5 hours or something like that. And it was only a couple of sessions to do that because it's just an addictive game. The way it builds up, the way it teaches you through mostly design rather than tutorials. I still feel like a lot of games get that completely wrong, where they just throw tutorials at you and it's boring as hell, rather than do almost like going back into the start of gaming with like Super Mario Brothers 1, where we're going to throw a Goomba at you, so you better learn how to jump, and you know, here's a hole, so you better learn how to run and jump, and all these kind of things. Like Portal 2 definitely takes that ethos. And I don't really get too heavy into the lore of, you know, how Portal is linked to Half-Life and, you know, all the Aperture stuff. But, you know, I loved the story as it was told in Portal 2. Whereas, like, you know, I definitely don't want to spoil anything. I didn't find it very, like, shocking or anything that happened in it. It was very
Same, I remember,
predictable.
Yeah. It was a bit
But even
cool,
with
though.
that, it was cool. Like, I kind of could see how things were going to go, but... It had a very satisfying conclusion. A lot of games struggle with that. Like the end game and just how it finished up was very funny to me. And then, like the co-op like is so awesome. Like it's you know, obviously more like Portal 1 for me. Like, you know, Portal 1 did have a story, but in terms of just, it feels more like levels. Like, you know, go through this course, go through this course. Whereas Portal 2 felt like a game.
And we haven't got to like the advanced stuff yet.
No.
And that's where I think... it's already good, but I think it starts to shine the more and more layers that they put on it. Because they could have just honestly made, maybe you'd need a bit more, a few more levels and stuff, but they could have just made Portal to the co-op mode and people would have been happy. It wouldn't have had the impact, but people would have been like, oh, what a great way to continue Portal, you know? But instead they did it all. Yeah,
because we spoke about this offline, but... And it's obviously not the case, but I felt playing the co-op, it was like, oh, was this actually the start of Portal 2? Like they were building it as a co-op game. And then sort of as they went through development, they were like, you know what, we need to bring a single player into this to really expand it out. Because it felt like that was the design of it. You look at the box art, it's very much emphasizing the two machines, even though really the main game, you don't play as those machines.
Now,
so
can you imagine Portal in VR? Right.
Whoa.
Just wait a second. You know in Portal how you set it up where you've got like an endless loop of you falling through portals?
Oh yeah. No.
Imagine that
so sick.
Imagine that in
like
VR.
sick, literally. Man, in Alyx, just dropping down from one level to another makes you feel sick. I'm talking about like a height of, you know, I don't know, half a meter or something. It's nuts. Oh, sorry to interject. One thing I forgot about Half Life Alyx is to mention that Reese Darby was in it, because you guys were talking about how there's people in.
He's good in that.
He's in it, and Man, the first time I heard it, all I could think about was, all right, Jermaine,
Yeah,
present.
Flight of the Conchords.
All right, Brett, present. Choice. All right,
Present.
Alex, present.
Yeah, no, like he's good in that. Mike, did you play this game when it came out?
Yeah, I played. Oh, I'm trying to remember if it was when it came out. I played it.
Or just
was
after.
Was it part of the Orange Box back in the day?
No.
When did I
So
play it?
Portal 1 was part of
Portal
Orange
1 was
Box.
part of the Orange Box. Okay, so I would have played it on separately to that then. Yeah. Well, because we played it Swinny back in the day. I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, so I played a co-op with
Yeah.
you, played co-op with another one of our friends. I don't know if I completed it all the way with you. Maybe
I
did.
think I finished it separately.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it was definitely played it with you.
Fantastic. Genius game, like you said. Really genius game.
And the other component that I haven't mentioned so far, that I think is actually a big part of it, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, is the community-based test chambers. I don't know if you know much about this, Mike, or even Swinny. Essentially, they created an ability to create your own worlds and your own courses. And I don't know if you have it on PC or not, Mike, but
I have it on PC as well, I think, yeah.
definitely, like, honestly, just install it and download the number one level. It is mind-blowing.
Okay.
What they do in this level. Like, when I was playing it, I was like, what the F? What is going on here? Like, I won't give too much away, but as opposed to anything in Portal where, it's a complex puzzle, but it's, I think, kind of like straightforward in terms of it's always the same universe and what you're looking at, and you go through a portal, you come out of another portal. This one it has the next dimension, which is as your view changes. So as you start to walk around and you go past like some object that's blocking you and you look around, the whole world is changed.
There's a game that I wish I could talk about that kind of does something similar, but it would be a spoiler. It's such a cool when that stuff happens in games and it plays with your perception of reality. Like even Valhalla does that as well, but that's not. It's such a small thing.
That's because you're drunk.
Yeah, so this has the extra dimension that it literally could be like a square room and it has a post in the middle. As you're walking around the post, because it's blocking part of your view, it's like you're seeing another part of a room, but it's like it's impossible for the dimensions of the room.
I know what you mean.
It always makes me just wonder, like, how does that work from a coding standpoint? It's
I don't know how they do
it's
it.
nuts.
Wild.
So they have that, and then they have portals.
Oh, God.
Like, I
Wow.
was playing a bit of it, and I'm like, this is so cool and such next level. I'm almost like, this could be Portal 3 if they just elaborate on these kind of ideas.
Wow. What is that game that I don't know if it's one of the games you mentioned, Swinny, where it is about you get like a block, and depending on the perspective, like you use that same element in a different size to solve puzzles and stuff. I don't know. Like there was a trailer for it a year ago or something. I'll have to look it up for next time.
No idea.
Is
but
it
it was
Manifold Garden?
I don't know. I do not remember the name of it for the life of me. I'm not sure. But it was the whole thing with perception and
Gorogoa.
No, it wasn't Gorogoa
okay.
either. Gorogoa kind of does, but no, it was a 3D one where you use like an object might look like it's just a tiny little thing, but then you grab it and you kind of move it, and it's like the scale is completely different in the context of where you're looking at now. I'll look it up. I'll look it up for next show. But it's the same. It just reminds me of that a lot, and they looked amazing as a concept.
Yeah, so I think like as an experience, Portal 2, it's just like if you want to play a single player puzzle game, I don't know many others that could compete in this space with it. Like there are puzzle games where it's kind of a loop puzzle game, where you're just doing the same thing over and over again, but just different puzzles because it's easy to, or just the nature of the gameplay that it's repeatable.
I would
Tetris.
I would very much recommend to play through Portal 1 first before.
I don't think you need to.
No. The reason being is I think not only is Portal 1 like a pretty short experience, but I think it sets up the narrative for Portal 2 in a really cool way that I think it has more impact. You don't need to, but I think that it's my recommendation because it's not like you're playing a 40-hour game. You're playing Portal 1 is like 4 or 5 hours max, unless you get really stuck. And I think it leads in great into Portal 2. So
no, that's fair enough. I think, look, if you only have time to play 1, play Portal 2. But if you can play 2, play Portal 1.
This is as trippy as the game itself. Oh my god.
Look, honestly, I don't know much more to say than that. Like, I would have ranked it, I think, almost minimum number 2 in 2011. Won't have the opportunity to do that. We are a collective effort. I'm still bitter and twisted about that. Can't believe you guys don't have this in your top 6 of 2011.
Hey, I got rid of Witcher 2, so I did my part.
True, fair.
I got rid of games too, yeah.
Bit different given Witcher 3 is just the superior game, so. But yeah, I wonder if they'll ever make Portal 3. Don't feel like they ever will.
I think they will 100%, but I don't think it'll be for a long time.
When has Valve ever made a 3 game?
That's a good point as well.
I think they will at some point because you could go so many cool places, as you said, with it. But I just don't think it'll be for a long time.
Yeah, I think the thing is they probably want to make a VR game because they're just so big on VR at the moment. But it can't be a VR game that you traverse the world in, I don't think. So it must be like a VR game where you're looking around the world and you... it's almost like you're sending robots through the portals and watching where they go.
You could do something cool with Aperture Science and VR. I don't know, maybe... Look, they haven't done any little tech demos with that stuff already, have they?
I haven't seen anything like that because I instantly Googled Portal VR after playing the Oculus Quest 2. Not that I wanted to play it in VR because I think it would really make me sick, but just the idea of it, I think because of the accuracy of shooting. Like that was one thing with Alyx, like Half Life Alyx, the accuracy of shooting and actually having to orientate the gun so that you can see through the sight.
Yeah.
It's like really like mind bending. So,
do you find you were closing one eye when you were doing it?
Yes,
same.
100%. Which I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh no, I think it probably does in real life. I think in real life you are more accurate when you just use one eye.
But no, Portal 2, loved the game. Thought it was fantastic. 10 out of 10 game. Feel like I'm saying that about every game. Where would you guys rank it, like roughly?
What?
On a 10 scale.
Didn't we already rank it on our list?
No, but on a 10 scale. I mean, you could have 10 out of 10 games and maybe 7 of them.
Yeah, look, it's like a 9.5, 10-ish kind of game. Yeah, it's a solid game.
If we can do points, maybe 8.5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but my scale, I'm 5 is exact average.
He's a harsh critic.
So. No, it's just I use exact average scale. So,
yeah.
But you know, like I don't give every game 10 out. It seems like in this podcast, but I don't.
So far, you have, yeah.
I don't give every game 10 out of 10. There's very few games that actually would have 10 out of 10 for me. But
I just this is one of them. Wow.
Yeah, I just think
is it just so you can justify all the fighting you did to keep it in the list?
Like I said, okay. I don't think I rarely play a game and think I don't think there's anything I would change about the game. I just think, you know, it might not be what I would choose editorially, but I just think how they've executed the vision, how they play it, the length of the game.
That's fair enough.
I think this game could have easily been longer, and that would have been a mistake. And it's probably brave that they didn't make it longer.
It's like the IT crowd. We spoke about it before this.
Yeah, and just the ingenious puzzles that they have just continuously, and then just adding new dimensions to it, new things to bounce off and gels and all this other kind of stuff. You're just like, oh, wow, okay. And it all coming together in the end. It's just awesome. Just such an awesome experience. All right, we've gone long. Let's wrap up the show. So, as always, if you want to reach out to us at bigwigpod or bigwigpod@gmail.com or hit us up through the YouTube comments. Feel free to critique and comment about Swinny's Assassin's Creed tier lists. There's a holy war going on about whether Odyssey is a good game or not. And whether you're allowed
Assassin's
to have opinions
Creed
or not.
game or not. That's the key.
Yes, okay, fair enough. And most importantly, give us a 5-star review on your podcast service of choice and tell a mate about the podcast. We would appreciate it. All right, with that, bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.